Welcome to part 2 of Nuclear Dragon. If you encounter any issues or have feedback, please let me know in the comments rather than just disliking the video. Your input helps me improve, and I'm here to make sure you have the best experience possible. Enjoy the content.
Part 1. Chapter 76. What is the concept of these 840 gold coins? That's money that ordinary people can't make for a lifetime. As the elite guards of the princesses of the kingdom, the Griffin Rider, each of them is above level 7. But what is their salary? 30 hardware coins a year. This is already considered high-tech. As a young man, as a captain, his strength is in the 10th grade, and his salary for a year is only 80 gold coins. The girl in front of you, Hoda, how can 840 gold coins in a year? Professionals who can get this salary in the kingdom must be at least level 16 or above. This is an existence close to a legend. Can the girl in front of me compare with this existence? Obviously not. The 7th princess was silent for a long time before she was a little uncertain and said, "You are not kidding?" "No." Princess 7 is silent again. Although she is a princess, the money distributed every year is not particularly large. After all, the expenses of their royal children are issued by the royal family. She doesn't own any business, and she doesn't raise the Griffin group behind her. If 100 gold coins a year, she still took it out. 200 gold coins are fine. 840 gold coins? Save it. When I never said anything. Ah ha ha, Lucia laughed, her armor trembling. Today's weather is really good. Blue sky and white clouds. Clear sky. Nephro, come to the sky with me. I'm afraid not. We are very busy here. Neferu refused. What are you up to? If you can help, I will definitely help. Lucia hurriedly said. Very good. Has escaped from the embarrassment just now. Our director Shillong wants to recruit actors and make a movie. Make a movie? Then I really can't help. Good luck. No, you can help us. Silum suddenly said, looking at Lucia with a hot expression. How can I help? Lucia asked with a look of surprise. Ciro cast his eyes behind her and motioned. Do you want them to join your crew? Lucia's eyes widened slightly. Yes, they're all quite good. It's just right to join my crew. What are you kidding? They are the Griffin guards of the royal family. How can they go to make a movie? Lucia instinctively rejects filmmaking. Like Blue Star, the movie has a lot of negative rumors in Shillong City, and the little white face is taken care of by a rich woman. The greasy rich man raises a little girl. These rumors disgusted the noble prince, and the knight behind her was the same. Professionals are divided into 3 or 6 or 9 grades. Joining the Royal Guard is obviously a high-level occupation. The status is far above the actors. Why can't you take pictures? You can take pictures too. It's not that I don't pay any money, Silum said. It's not a question of money or not. Come on, I'll give you 10 gold coins every month, and your subordinates 2 to 5 gold coins per month. For every person you join, I will give you an extra gold coin every month. Additional allowance for injuries. How about it? These are extra income. Shillong's words are like the whispers of the devil, with endless temptation. A few knights couldn't help but swallow, adding 2 to 5 gold coins every month. Even if they only have 2 gold coins, it is equivalent to their usual income. This is all extra money. Can you not be moved? Their eyes were a bit fiery looking at the youth captain and secretly leaving the princess. There is no high or low occupation, all for the prosperity of the kingdom. And the princess is obviously a little moved. As a royal family, she is far from richer than others imagined. The subsidy for 1 year is only 500 gold coins. 1 month is more than 40 gold coins. There is an opportunity in front of me to add more than 20 gold coins every month. How can I not be moved? She saw the knight's gaze in her eyes. Her left arm tightened the helmet in the tight arm, and the right hand with the hand armor gently stroked her chin, pretending to think, and then said, Okay, for my subordinates. Also, for the prosperity of the movie. I promised you. Happy cooperation. Silum stretched out his right hand. Lucia didn't know why. When we reach an agreement, we will shake hands to celebrate. Silum explained. Oh, haha, good. Lucia showed a clear expression and happily shook hands with Shillong. Andre, Neferu, and Armin on the side looked at Shillong with a puzzled face. Does Dragon Island have this custom? Finally reached an agreement, a group of people went to the shooting location. Shillong took out the script he had prepared and let everyone watch it. Everyone looked at different expressions, a little puzzled, and some expressed interesting. I waited for several hours before shooting started. But before that, Sillin first implanted the forward. Once upon a time, there was an evil at work. This evil had 9 tails, and when the tail was moved, there would be landslides and tsunamis, and civilians suffered greatly. Therefore, the demon war was assembled to fight against him. But the Nine-Tails Cthulhu was so strong that the demon warriors were invincible, and only one person desperately launched the legendary seal technique to seal it. This person is the 4th generation, Demon King of Fireland. At this point, Shillong made Alman a child, a yellow-haired baby, lying on a crib, engraved with a seal circle around him, making Alman cry a few times, and the first act officially ended. Firefighting Season 1 officially began. On the street, the Naruto that Armin transformed into, Uzumaki was laughing wildly at this time, holding the oil drum and brush while laughing, and fleeing desperately. His speed is extremely fast, but the pursuers who have been chasing behind him are not slow, hanging tightly behind him. Soon came to a turning corner. Several trackers lost Naruto. Uzumaki's trail had to bite the bullet and chase in an unknown direction. The wall on the side of suddenly lifted a roll of paper, revealing the laughing Naruto. Uzumaki, looking at the back of the pursuer and smiling triumphantly. I won't be chased by you, idiots. Just then a man wearing a whip to the sky Wuxia world, that online with a scar on his nose, and wearing a green vest appeared Naruto. Behind the whirlpool, he caught him. That's right. This is the film Shillong is going to shoot Naruto after the magic transformation. In order to allow the residents of this world to understand Hokage more clearly, he modified many details, such as ninja called magic war. Magic warrior. Is it simple enough to understand? Uzumaki? Naruto's Japanese name is hard to understand? It's okay, just call Naruto? Uzumaki will do. In addition, this world has transfiguration and their very convenient spells. Shillong, who is already a 12th level arcane master, is still confident to shoot this demonic Naruto. Although the shooting was not fast and often NG, it still went on in an orderly manner. Soon came to Naruto. Uzumaki performed the art of change in the classroom. When Armin learned that Sillin would not let his substitute pass the scene for him, his expression was awkward. The other actors were smiling, waiting to see this guy make a fool of himself, especially those knights. They keep in mind how rude this arrogant guy was to his princess before. Shillong, you bastard. Such a simple scene. Call someone else to shoot. You just call someone up? Just cast him a transformation spell below. Why do I have to perform it myself? Alman was extremely upset. This guy has a very high arcane level now, and he can do it for others. Why must he stare at himself? We are brothers. Watching my brother make a fool. Is this happy? Part 1. Chapter 77. Didn't you say you want to play the leading role? You can't stand it at all? You are also worthy of being an actor? Let me tell you, Shillong was not to be outdone, and caught Armin just like a blow. This kid, I gave you so many gold coins for nothing. Give me a joke when you act? Oh, all right. I change. I can't change. But others are not allowed to watch. You let the onlookers turn around. Mother-in-law, you won't be naked. What are you afraid of? Hurry up. Everyone is waiting. Shooting continues. Next, Naruto. After Irika's words fell, Armin, who played Naruto, stepped forward, chanting a spell quickly. Okay, that's right. It was a spell, not a knot. The mouth closed quickly, and then Pung gave it a click. A puff of smoke passed, and a handsome man, with only the woman hidden in key parts, appeared. This woman's face looks good, at least a neutral face, but the body structure is rather strange. It's too flat. Even if something is changed to block the chest, the smoothness of the chest can be seen. There's also a waist, no curves at all. The whole person is a tablet. From the waist to the lower body, it is completely H-shaped. He has to put on an enchanting look, doing a charming posture. Puff, ha ha. In the classroom, the actors who played the students together couldn't help laughing. Some directly broke the transformation technique. A group of actors who turned around. How could they bear this laughter? They turned around and looked at the court, saw the tablet on the court, and laughed one by one. You guys, what are you laughing at? What's so funny? The 7th princess was looking at these unidentified smiling guys at this time, and she couldn't help but frown and asked, That's not funny? How can a woman be so flat? Is this body 3 or 4 years old? Obviously his face is 20 years old. And the waist, the legs, it's too strange. Ha ha ha, a griffin rider said instinctively. 7th Princess Lucia. She glanced at her chest and replaced her armor. The original female armor had no bulge, and the noble costumes were really flattering. Lucia's complexion was a little unkind and said, Is it weird to have a flat chest? Of course it's weird. How can a woman be so flat? My lover's chest. I almost can't hold it with one hand. Ha ha. The knight stared at Armin casually, without looking back. Laugh it out. The surrounding knights stopped laughing at this time and looked at the knight in admiration. Bastard. The princess screamed, interrupting the atmosphere, and everyone else couldn't help but turn their eyes to Lucia. The knight who spoke before was no exception. He turned his head and looked at Lucia. His complexion suddenly changed. Stubbornly said, Gong, Your Royal Highness, Misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. I was talking nonsense just now. Don't take it to your heart. At this time, Princess Lucia seemed to be shrouded in darkness, her expression extremely gloomy. Go. Run 20 laps along the street outside. No. No. Your Royal Highness. The knight wailed. I order you as the leader of the Griffin Rider team. Immediately. Immediately. Yes. The knight showed a seam of face and ran out. Lucia glanced at the other knights and scared them straight up, not daring to say a word. All right, everyone don't look at me. Keep shooting, Lucia said. Shillong turned his gaze back to Armin. This guy had watched Andre's film with me before. How could it seem like he didn't understand anything? But thinking about it carefully, the woman in that movie seems to be of poor shape. Forget it. Let me change it myself. Okay, everyone is back. This scene is over. Armin, you can just do the spell at that time. I will cast you polymorphism. Remember not to resist. Asshole. In the end, you weren't asked to cast spells. Then why would you refuse to change someone else? Armin said. Hurry up. Just make a simple scene. Don't grab your gold coins. What do you want to do? Shillong's face was stern, not showing face to his brother at all. Next, Naruto. The familiar scene came again. When he came on stage to chant the spell until the last syllable fell, pung. The smoke appeared again. A woman with blonde hair and a bumpy figure appeared. The figure Bailey can be said to be extremely seductive. This is different from the original, but Zero has changed it to him based on his own human aesthetics. Because he has experienced the baptism of the internet Mido era, the beauty he transformed is absolutely perfect here, and his figure has caused a great impact on the male compatriots present. The first person to bear the brunt was Beverly, who transformed into a Luca. He directly broke the transfiguration technique, and his whole body bowed slightly, his face flushed red. The others were no better than Bevlay, bowed and bent over. Woo, what greeted them was a wink of Armin after the transformation. Although there are clouds and mist covering the key parts, but the slight exposure is enough to stimulate. A few knights who were still wearing armors before it was their turn to appear suddenly felt bad. Brother topped the plate armor. So hard. It hurts. Hell, the knights looked uncomfortable. My stomach is sick. Go to the toilet first. The knight's words seemed to have opened a head. A group of people felt sick. Soon there were only a few people in the classroom. Alman, Shillong, Neferu, and Andre. What's the matter with them? Did they have a bad stomach? Everyone went to the bathroom. Neferu asked curiously. I don't feel well in my stomach. This is also a common occurrence. Lucia replied casually. Both eyes stared at Armin's deformed woman. Why is the breast so big? The figure is so good. Can a person who learns magic transform his body so arbitrarily? Damn it, I should be a mage back then, which told me to be a rider. Turning to look at Nefer's chest, Lucia's mood finally improved a lot. She walked to Nefer's side and hugged the other's waist. Neferu just looked. Lucia ignored it. What are these guys doing? I finally got through it, and there was a problem. Damn. Do you guys don't want me to go through this paragraph today? Armin said excitedly, pouting. His chest swayed. Fortunately, the poor-willed person has already got sick in his stomach and left temporarily. Okay, filming. It is inevitable that there will be some bumps. It will be over soon. Don't be so anxious. Shillong comforted. Do you like this site? Donate here. Part 1. Chapter 78 continues shooting after the person who goes to the toilet comes out. This scene was NG several times before it passed. A few days later, the story of Shillong stealing Naruto into the Book of Seals was over. It is divided into classes, and then there are survival drills. The shooting of survival exercises made everyone gather in the forest again. But it hasn't been long before shooting. The sky of this forest suddenly changed color, and something strange seemed to float on it. The gravity in the sky becomes abnormal. This is a forbidden air field. Andre frowned and looked to the sky. It looks like something is coming. Forbidden air domains generally appear on the battlefield, mainly banning the opponent's air forces. Flying creatures like the griffin, once stepped into the field, they will be overwhelmed by the sudden pressure and fall from the air. Even if it is a giant dragon, in the forbidden air domain, its flying speed will be greatly reduced, and the physical consumption during flight will be doubled. A group of uninvited guests soon came to this forest. A group of people dressed in cloaks. There are at least 20 people. Some of them look very tall even if they are wearing cloaks, and the whole body is faintly entangled with blood. These guys have killed a lot. There are some people who are much shorter, and they wear different cloaks, and the darkness on their bodies is very strong. Seeing these people, the people who were still shooting immediately stopped shooting and looked at these people one by one. Who are you? The Griffin Rider squad leader couldn't help asking, his sword tightened. Is shouting bad in my heart? These guys look like an evil lineup one by one. This group of stunners are the most brainless. No matter what your status is, you will be caught. You must know that after several days of shooting, a group of Griffin Riders had long been dressed lightly. There were no griffins nearby, and no armor on them. Only a sword was still on them. In this case, if the opponent is stunned and launches an attack, then they will definitely be out of luck. Combat power has decreased too much. If the original Griffin Rider had armor and Griffin in it, he could have level 8 strength. With so few armors and Griffins, they can only play against level 6 fighters at most. The outcome is not yet known. For a fighter, equipment is so important. Regarding the question of the Griffin Rider squad leader, none of the cloaks paid any attention. A short guy standing in front slowly raised his head, revealing his true face under his cloak. Straightly shocked everyone, including the princess. That is a skull. There is a purple-black flame in both eyes. A purple gem is inlaid on the forehead. The rich dark magic is as real at this moment. Princess Lucia held her breath unconsciously. Is this a lich? Or half-lich? In this world, the lich is a very scary creature. Most of them are legends, because most of them were legendary mages during their lifetime. Until their lifespan is approaching, the wizards who are unwilling to die will do everything possible to extend their life. Transforming into a lich through the power of darkness and death is undoubtedly a known shortcut. Although they lost their body and senses, they retained most of their strength. In addition to a few light spells, their darkness and death spells will be enhanced. The legendary lich is undoubtedly one of the most terrifying monsters in this world. Their appearance represents death, disaster, terror, an unknown legend. That is a power that an ordinary person can't even think of. Alone is enough to destroy tens of thousands of elites in the kingdom. There are two types of demi-liches. One is the mage who has not completely transformed the lich, and the other is formed by other lich gang leaders. These two are weak against impossible in terms of strength. According to historical records, no demi-lich is below level 15. Hope that the skull head in front of you is a demi-lich, and there is no evil intentions. This great lich lord, I am the third Princess Lucia of the Starland Kingdom. If your lord needs to use this forest, we will let you guys right away. Lucia said, although there are legendary powerhouses in the kingdom, and there is not only one, these powerhouses are not by her side, so Lucia is very sensible. After saying these words, she turned around with a group of people and wanted to leave. But the cloak group in front of me, how could it be so simple to let Lucia go? Several cloaked men with strong builds rushed out and stopped in front of Lucia and the others. Because of getting closer, Lucia finally sees the other person's appearance. That is a rather rough-looking man. There is a blood-stained beast claw on his face. A tyrannical look. You, all prey, must hunt all? Damn it, a follower of Mara, the hunting god. Lucia realized that it was not good when she saw this pattern. Mala is a week of chaos and evil, also known as the beast of black blood. To admire the original pleasure of hunting, drinking the blood and meat of the prey is the highest honor. Once the madman who worships Marathon focuses on the target and considers the valuable creatures, he will kill the opponent, and then sacrifice the other party's blood and meat to Marathon to request the power to hunt stronger prey. That guy just now actually say that he is their prey? I'm afraid today is not good. All the knights raise their swords one by one, leaning silently towards Lucia. You're right. I feel it. A lot of dragon breath. The existence of an unknown lich or demi-lich looked in the direction of Xylem and others. You reading www.concha.com's eye sockets, there was a beating. Four-headed dragon. It's really good. None of them are older than the prime of life. Skull's head opened and closed, and there was no sound, but the sound was clear to everyone's ears. This is the sound from the soul. Four-headed dragon? We have 4 dragons here. Lucia's eyes widened, scanning the people behind him back and forth. Maybe there is still help. There are 4 dragons. There is no need to be afraid of the enemy in front of you. Haha, are you happy? Zoro, your church will have 3 more dragons and liches soon, but don't forget the deal between us. Their blood and flesh are dedicated to our Lord. The leader of the tall cloak, said the man who had been standing next to the lich creature. Of course, I won't forget your deal, said the lich creature. Then turned his head and said to Shillong and others, for respected dragons, we are from the Dragon Lich Church. I have the most sincere wishes, and I hope you can join our church. Neferu could not help but stand up and curse. What are you talking about? You want us to be a dragon lich? It might as well die. What a bunch of disgusting guys. Lucia on one side was slightly surprised. Neferu was a dragon? What about Andre and Shillong and Armin? Lucia's thinking became clear. I knew before that the Soderbergh Chamber of Commerce had a close cooperation with the dragon, and many dragons appeared in the early works. I didn't expect that this is a dragon chamber of commerce. The background is really big enough. Many people also figured this out and looked at the 4 Neferu in amazement. Part 1. Chapter 79. Many knights who were ready to honor the princess swear to the death to defend the princess, felt relieved. Maybe, you don't need to explain here today, but are we implicated? Is implicated between the Dragon Lich Church and the dragon? Lucia, as a royal family, naturally knows the Church of the Dragon Lich. There are not many records of this church. It is an unpopular church, and the traces of its founder have basically been erased in the history books. But the purpose of the church is still faintly recorded. This is a church dedicated to transforming dragons into liches. They worship the power possessed by the dragons. The top of this church are all liches. They hate the living, so the dragons must be liches. The lich that the dragon turns into is the Dragon Lich. In the eyes of the Dragon Lich Church, the Dragon Lich possesses immortal life, tyrannical power, and is a perfect creature. But the dragons are very contemptuous of the Dragon Lich. Whether it is a 5-color dragon or a metal dragon, they think they are not worthy of being called a dragon at all. After they fall into the Dragon Lich Queen, their power will be greatly reduced. At the same time, their hearts will be distorted by the physical image of the undead. Their personality will be distorted, and they will hate creatures. Their feelings will become indifferent, and everything before their lives will become irrelevant. This is something the dragons with deep memories and full of emotions cannot bear. After becomes a Dragon Lich, it will be another existence. As time goes by, I will no longer be myself. However, it is said that most Dragon Liches evolve from 5-color dragons. Some old or short-lived dragons will actively seek out the Dragon Lich Church. It's a pity. You can't help it. Look at your skins. It's disgusting. I really want to peel them from your body inch by inch. Then slowly appreciate your perfect skeleton. When this guy who seems to be a lich talked about it, the purple fire in his eyes seemed to be more prosperous. His mood fluctuates slightly at this moment. Lich, you succeeded in angering us. At the end of Neferu's words, he was slightly separated from the crowd. After a twist of his body, a behemoth over 10 meters tall and 15 to 6 meters long appeared. Most of her body is like a gray rock, with golden lines on her neck, is a bronze dragon of youth. Lucia's night camp was slightly flustered when seeing this behemoth. Is really too tall at 10 meters. This body shape is comparable to a 3-story villa. Roar! The dragon roared, and the power of the dragon spread out toward the surroundings. Because Longwei does not distinguish between enemy and us, the knights who were the first to feel the heartbeat instantly felt their legs tremble. This is the dragon. Everyone present, except for Captain Cavaliers, who was fortunate enough to see the dragon once many years ago. Everyone else was the first to see. Some ordinary level 6 and level 7 professionals have even collapsed to the ground. According to the level of the Book of Human Adventure, Neferu in front of me is only level 12. But the 12th level of the dragon is undoubtedly the strongest 12th level among creatures. Their power crushes humans, and the scale armor has high magic resistance. If a 12th level fighter can fight against more than 26th and 7th level professionals, then the dragon will expand this number 7 or 8 times, even more than 10 times. The dragon is not afraid of group attacks. The overwhelming Longwei greatly reduced the fighting power of the friendly forces, but the group of cloaked people on the opposite side did not respond much, but looked at her more eagerly. Idiot! Put Longwei away, Andre said quickly when he saw this. Oh, whoa! Neferu also found that the situation was not right, so she didn't dare to continue to show the majesty of her dragon clan, and quickly put away the dragon, and a group of talents returned to normal. Roar! In this gap, Andre also roared, and his body quickly turned into a golden beast with a height of about 17 meters and a body length of more than 24 meters. The scales of the giant beast were a little dazzling in the sun, and the long beards under his forehead fluttered, giving him a calmness. Seeing his allies couldn't help but feel a little settled. Golden Dragon. Metal is the head of the dragon clan and is famous in the human world. It is synonymous with power, wisdom, and justice. I didn't expect to be by our side all the time. Still the slick Andre. Crack, click, click, the skulls and jaws that looked like liches collided with each other, making a voice that seemed to be laughing. Very good. Very good. An adult golden dragon. A young bronze dragon. What are the other two little guys? Bump. Andre shook his limbs forward, took 2 steps, and made a loud noise. Shillong, Armin, and everyone else. You all get out of here quickly. You can run as far as you can. In Andre's eyes, the strength of these humans is only level 10 at most, and they are too weak without equipment. It is better to run away. As for Shillong and Armin, these 2 little guys are too small. Even if Shillong had shown good arcane arts, it was not in Andre's eyes. Because arcane is not as strong as an elemental wizard in combat. How strong can an arcanist at level 10 be? Want to run? That's impossible. Today, everyone will sacrifice my lord in blood. The black blood beast believer, who has been standing next to the seeming lich, spoke. He suddenly pulled the cloak on his body Wuxia World, online to reveal the true face inside. A strong body, a necklace of animal teeth hanging around his neck, blood-stained animal claws on his chest, and he didn't know what animal skin he was wearing. Made of bell-bottoms, with his right hand hanging on his side, he is carrying a giant axe more than 1 meter long. The giant axe looked very extraordinary, blood flowing. At the moment when his true body appeared, the believer used his feet to kill Neferu with a bang. His target is the knights behind Neferu. At this moment, Andre also acted. He was the strongest on the scene. Well, he thinks it is. Was also the first to react, and his tail flicked towards the believer holding the axe. Ha ha ha. The believer laughed wildly, looked at the tail in front of him, which was bigger than his whole person, and yelled, "Furthermore!" This believer's muscles swelled in vain. His eyes were blood red, and the giant axe in his hand hit the dragon's tail. Boom! There was a loud noise. This believer was smashed into the air by a dragon like a cannonball. Has been flying 7 or 80 meters pung. He broke a tree and fell on a branch. There was a trace of blood on the corner of this believer's mouth, but a frantic smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It is indeed an adult golden dragon. The power is far beyond my match. This believer is divided into ranks and has 18 levels. Is a fighter and is a barbarian. Their power is undoubtedly a huge force among ordinary people. But the size is there. How can he compete with a 17-meter monster at about 2 meters? Still in the process of head-to-head? Even if the rage is turned on and the power increases, the gap is still too big. Part 1. Chapter 80. Idiot. Seriously, is the power of the dragon comparable to you as a human? Said the skull. This is just a test. Try the power gap between me and him, but it is not without gain. Look at his beautiful tail. There is a large dragon scale broken. Next time, I will use my bloodthirsty to pierce his scale armor and be embedded in his flesh and blood. The black blood beast believer stared at the tail of the golden dragon and said, "The scales there have jumped a big chunk, and the skin and flesh have been exposed. You guys go." Andre reminded again. At the same time as the voice fell, he took a deep breath, opened his mouth, and a hot flame emerged from his mouth. "Prepare the ice wall," the skullhead said quickly when he saw this situation. The magic of cold ice quickly converged. The flames in Andre's mouth grew hotter and hotter, and then his head suddenly drew forward. A cone-shaped flame burst out wildly, covering 100 meters ahead, rushed to the cloak group. At the same time, an ice barrier that gathered many magical powers appeared. Fierce dragon fire sprayed on it. Chi-la-la-la-la, the water vapor filled the sky. Continued for 10 seconds before Andre stopped breathing. He breathed slightly. Look in the direction enveloped by water vapor. After waiting for a while, the water vapor dissipated and the people inside were unharmed, except that the ground became scorched earth and a layer of water was added. Lucia and others took this opportunity to run 200 or 300 meters. However, 6 or 7 of the followers of the Black Blood Beast had already set off from the flanks before the dragon spit the flames and started chasing them. They rushed towards Lucia at an extremely fast speed. There are a few more sturdier ones who rushed towards the bronze dragon. Many of the short cloaks have cast spells. Either a fireball or a cone of ice with wisps of cold light burst from the sky to the Lucia knights. Andre quickly stepped to the left to resist these spells. The high spell resistance made these spells a little firework. But soon the leading lich released a 2-meter-long spear exuding deathly cold. Stab Andre straight. This is an 8th level spell, if the stab is enough to penetrate Andre's scales. Seeing the spear getting closer and closer, Andre was already evasive, ready to resist. Suddenly, the air in front of him seemed to become sticky. Boom! A powerful force of gravity directly acted on the spear, instantly changing its shooting direction and shooting it to the ground. The ground was shot by a spear, but in an instant, the spear sank into the ground, leaving only a hole a few centimeters in diameter and disappeared. What kind of magic is this? The skull was a little startled. The flames inside the skull jumped violently, staring at Shillong behind the dragon. I saw the dragon descendant's right hand stretched out and his palm pointed in the direction of the spear. Want to learn? It's a pity that you can't learn it, Silum faintly replied. The flames in the eye sockets of the skull's head jumped violently. Hurry up, fell with his voice. Followers of the Black Blood Beast, the Dragon Lich Church has become true. The followers of the Black Blood Beast are all elite warriors above level 10. After stopping Lucia's Griffin Knights, they immediately formed a crush. In the Dragon Lich Church, half of the cloaks began to summon creatures. There are water, fire, wind, earth, and thunder elements in the elemental world. Each of these elemental beings are composed of various elements, and they are about 1.5 meters tall. After they come out, they use their own elemental magic to start blasting people. Earth element, thunder element, water element ran directly to Neferu and started fighting. There are also some strange-looking monsters, which join the battle with a roar after they appear. The believers who used an axe to smash Andre's dragon scales also instantly joined the battlefield and attacked Andre. The battle seems to be extremely unfavorable to Andre and others at this moment. Armin, the boy, now doesn't dare to show his original shape and the enemy's hard anus. Before Andre was frightened by the broken scales. A grown-up golden dragon. The scales are all smashed, and the tail is broken if you can't change it. Then became a disabled dragon with a dock tail? That's horrible. A few monsters rushed towards Shillong and Armin. The boy Armin hid directly behind Zero, watching Zero wave his hand. A powerful repulsion blasted a few monsters out. A few magics flew up, but it was just a wave of the hand, and the repulsion directly dissipated the magic. In this gap, Shillong also used several buffs to support the Griffin Knights. These guys got the buff, and they immediately became fierce from 4 hitting 1 to 3 hitting 1. This relaxed appearance immediately attracted the attention of the enemy. He had been entangled with Andre with speed, and only seized the opportunity to fight back with the Axe Believer, an axe-wielding believer who avoided Andre's tail slamming. He rushed to Shillong quickly. Roar! Andre roared wildly, patted a few spells, and jumped to stop the man with the axe. At this time, the skeleton face, which had not been shot, finally shot again. The spell he had prepared for a long time had been completed. The most advanced 8th level spell. Summon the monster of the higher abyss. A magic circle full of aura appeared in the direction where the golden dragon jumped, and a huge, 3-headed dog appeared. Its height is more than 10 meters. Its 3 dogs have terrible heads, and the corners of its mouth are dripping with foul-smelling saliva. All parts of the body are entwined with flames. The head of this demon dog looks like a wolf, like a dog, majestic. At the moment it appeared, it roared and slammed into the golden dragon in the air fearlessly. The 2 giant beasts collided, causing huge wind pressure in an instant, and all of them stopped their attacks. Boom! The devil dog was hit by the golden dragon. It fell to the ground, splashing dust in the sky. The ground shook several times, but it was not to be outdone, and its 3 heads opened their huge mouths at the same time. The flames in the middle, the lightning on the left, WuxiaWorld.online, the venom on the right. There are 3 kinds of breaths. In terms of flame alone, its power seems to be far from Andre's breath. But the 3 sprays together still made Andre roar in pain. His scales were melted a lot, and his flesh and blood was blurred. Roar! Enduring the pain, Andre knew that he was the main strength of the team, and he had to solve his opponent quickly, otherwise everyone might have to explain here. With 3 kinds of breaths, he came to the devil dog, opened a huge mouth, and bit the devil's left head. The one who spit out lightning hurt him the most. The bite force of more than 10 tons immediately made the dog wailed. The golden dragon's teeth pierced the demon dog's neck, gurgling blood down like lava. When fell on the ground, it made noises from time to time, and the soil was burned by the high temperature. The magic dog was also crazy at this moment, and his other 2 heads were also biting on the dragon's body, and the 2 giant beasts rolled and roared the whole with their arrogant power. This situation is very unfavorable to Andre. Those followers of the Black Blood Beast took advantage of this gap and used their weapons to attack him frantically, and Andre could only bite the devil dog desperately. The sharp claws of the forelimbs pierced into the devil's body and tore. Soon the struggle of the devil dog gradually diminished. But at this time, the skull mage cast his spell again, and a few dark red rays of light spilled on the demon dog. This demon dog, whose original aura had been decayed, unexpectedly returned to life again. This skull is very strong, is very close to the legend. In addition, he was an erudite mage before his death, but he became an undead after death and continued to specialize in spells. Its knowledge of spells is too wide. Andre's situation has become unprecedentedly bad. Part 1. Chapter 81. Not far away, Neferu, who was entangled by a group of elemental creatures and a few followers of the Black Blood Beast, also discovered Andre's situation and suddenly felt anxious. After swept away 2 earth elements with his tail, his neck was gently tilted back, his mouth was opened, and a beam of blue lightning aimed at the 3-headed dog. The price of this breath is that he has been cut out of a few small holes. The blue lightning struck the devil dog's left front leg. A large amount of smoke appeared on the left front leg of this demon dog. The demon dog is a fire creature. He is immune to most burns, but the paralytic characteristics that make him bite Andre stiff, and then he is safe. Dre teared off a large piece of meat. The painful devil dog wailed desperately, but it was a pity that he was fixed by the golden dragon and could only be bitten. But at this time, those who besieged Neferu were not idle, and she soon overwhelmed herself. At this time, the senior warrior believer holding a giant axe had already rushed dozens of meters in front of Shillong. The ferocious face frightened Alman with a sharp spirit. The strength of this guy, Armin, is in his eyes. Absolutely strong, the kind that can hang him up and hit him. Shillong raised his arm at the believer. Boom! The strong repulsion pushes forward. The mud on the ground was bombarded tens of centimeters lower, splashing around. The repulsive force blasted this believer, and this believer did not even persuade him at all. With a sudden wave of his hands, his axe slashed forward. Click. After a slight stalemate for a moment, the believer's expression changed, and he quickly jumped back to the left to avoid the repulsion. This repulsive belt pushed back 10 more meters before disappearing. The believer moved his body again at this time, and he launched a storm-like onslaught, trying to make Shillong too fast to react. After all, in his impression, no matter how talented a wizard is without a guardian, he is extremely easy to deal with. His speed was extremely fast, but he still couldn't break through Shillong's repulsion. This believer surrounded Shillong's body and tried to advance continuously. The surrounding rumbling and loud noises continued, and the repulsion belt kept advancing and increasing. Believers are constantly changing their bodies, wielding a giant axe again and again. This terrible duel scared Armin again. He was so afraid that the on the opposite side would break through Shillong's defenses and chop him with an axe. Armin, who is in the body of an elf, hides behind Shillong, holding his shoulders tightly with both hands. Shillong, go back to his real body. Use your invincible real body to defeat these bastards. He was a little annoyed with his fellow Asylum. He clearly showed the battle that could be crushed by his real body. Why did he delay it until now? Didn't you see that the axe was only 2 or 3 meters away from the forehead again? How dangerous? Armin, this guy said lightly. This kid doesn't understand anything at all. Why is Shillong unwilling to turn back into his real body? Is not trying to hide my true strength. Is away from home, and there are no great brothers and sisters. If the real strength is directly exposed prematurely, was learned by a deliberate enemy, then next time the enemy will be as strong as you, or stronger than yourself, right? Don't understand this? Haven't read a certain novel? What if there are 180 legends next time? Can I only take you away? What happens in the middle is even worse. Shillong thought a lot at this moment. But soon, the black blood beast believer on the opposite side could not allow Soren to think more. When faced with the impact of a repulsive force again, this guy suddenly shouted, "High-level violent." This is his exclusive violent stunt. The high-level rage unique to the barbarians, and the rage combined with the special effects of the Mara believers, merged into the current high-level blood rage. The body of this believer swells again, directly became a little giant about 2.5 meters. The figure is exaggerated to the extreme. The arms are full of muscles. The animal skin shorts on the lower body were also burst in an instant. A wisp of blood floated from his body and floated to the sky. At this time, he looked terrifying. Is like a muscle demon from hell. Once again, faced the repulsion belt. The believer's axe swung from top to bottom. Boom! In a loud roar, the axe smashed the invisible repulsion belt. A layer of broken glass-like fragments suddenly appeared in the surrounding air, suddenly appeared, and then suddenly disappeared. Ha 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 ha! The believer laughed wildly, getting closer and closer to Shillong. Seeing this madman rushing forward, Shillong used gravity again. Boom! The dashing believer bent his body and almost fell down. His hands instantly supported the ground with a giant axe to support his body. Blue veins on the forehead burst. Ah! With force under his feet, the believer shot straight towards Shillong like a cannonball. No solution anymore. Xylan secretly said in his heart that his current dragonborn body is still too weak. The difference between 15% and 100% is the difference between heaven and earth. His body distorted with his thoughts, and soon turned into a super monster over 25 meters tall. That's right. He still retained his strength, did not show the real body. However, the current strength is enough to cope with the situation easily. On the dark scale armor, a little red golden brilliance flows, and the entire space seems to be slightly discolored. This super monster raised its forelimbs and slapped directly at the giant axe believer on the opposite side. From top to bottom. Okay. The berserk giant axe believer looked at the giant beast that obscured the sky in front of him. But in the next moment, the soldier's quick thinking still made him figure out the key. This is fake. No doubt. The monster in front of him is absolutely legendary. But this dragon is a little dragon with a bone age of about 40. This is the result of a magic detection by the intelligence organization a few days ago. And this dragon is a magic genius. The spell just now is really powerful. But because I am a magic genius Wuxia-World.online, I will not be fooled. The monster in front of him is just the opponent's transformation technique. Haha, I should really praise you. This is such an amazing transformation technique. I almost believed it. Ha ha ha, they are all fake. The mere illusion also wants to confuse me. Seeing the claws of the giant beast getting closer and closer, the berserker was not afraid at all. He seemed to have seen the phantom that shattered the opponent, and then split the opponent in half with an axe. Can't help but bring a bloodthirsty smile. Boom! The claws of the giant beast suddenly accelerated at this moment, causing a burst of energy, and instantly collided with the berserker. Die to me! The berserker's axe also smashed the beast's claws. Clank! With a loud noise, the berserker recalled his childhood, and when he first got an iron axe, he used it to chop iron blocks. When the axe went down, both arms were almost cracked. The feeling seems to be stronger this time. The force of the collision between the two arms instantly turned into a cloud of blood. Smash! His eyes widened instantly. Seems to be different from what I thought. Don't wait for him to think about it. The claws of the behemoth are already covering his body. Then press. Rumbling, the entire ground was covered by giant claws, with a radius of 1,000 meters, as if an earthquake of magnitude 8 or 9 had occurred. Several fighting fighters almost fell down. Invariably raised his head to look at the earthquake center. Then there was deathly silence. Part 1. Chapter 82. Everyone stopped the attack in unison and swallowed hard. This is a legendary dragon, right? Why does such a monster appear here? The dragon gently lifted its claws, and under the claws was a somewhat fuzzy human figure. This human form is tightly embedded in the ground, and around him is a giant claw mark more than 2 meters deep. Beside the seal of the giant claw, it is covered with cracks that are cracking all around. Shillong's eyes full of golden particles glanced at each other. This guy is not dead yet. What a strong vitality. But there is only one last breath. No, I didn't think. Actually, yes, really weird monster. The soldier lying in the human-shaped pit stared at the giant beast diagonally above with difficulty. After speaking, he swallowed one last breath. Ha 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 ha. Alman, who was hiding on Shillong's back, finally showed his head at this time. He hugged Shillong's neck tightly and laughed wildly. Shillong, you bastard. It should have appeared long ago. Being born in real life shot all these evil people to death. Tell them to dare to be evil in front of me. Shillong lifted up his forelimbs lightly and then fell. Moving forward, every time he fell, the ground would shake violently. Is really too heavy, although the prototype has not fully appeared. But the height is about 25 meters. On all fours from the forelimbs to the end of the tail, the length is about 38 meters. If you spread out your wings, it will be a monster with a wingspan of 50 or 60 meters. His weight is at least 20,000 tons. What a terrifying weight is this? Switch to Blue Star. With a hull of this weight, the length is close to 150 meters, the width is more than 20 meters, and the depth is 12 meters. Is such a big size, Shillong now has such a weight. It is no exaggeration to say that with his own weight alone, he can crush an ordinary dragon. This is mainly because of his body density. Generally speaking, the body of a dragon is not only larger, but the density of the body is much greater than that of ordinary creatures. And Shillong's body density is far more than the average dragon. Even steel. The sound of the booming earthquake touched the minds of all creatures. Even those elemental lives were shocked. Neferu quickly patted the approaching elemental creatures and looked towards the earthquake center, and then fell into a sluggish state. There are only 2 words in my mind. So big. So strong. Boom. Boom. In such an earthquake-like footstep, only Andre and the magic dog are still fighting. The two are rolling together, biting each other, and there is no time for him to care. But at this time Andre felt a lot better, because the people who besieged him did not know why they stopped attacking. Magic did not continue shooting him, even though the state has declined, but still relying on the size of the dog to suppress the 3-headed dog. Just when Andre bit the devil dog, a huge shadow suddenly enveloped the 2 giant beasts that were biting each other. Andre suddenly felt the 2 heads that had been biting him and opened his mouth. He looked at it from the corner of his eye. I saw this fierce dog that has been fierce since it appeared, and the scarlet pupils were filled with terror. There was a whining sound in my throat unconsciously. This guy is in fear. But what are you afraid of? Andrenusun. A huge claw appeared in his field of vision. It is extremely dark, but there is a golden brilliance flowing between the gaps of the scale armor. The giant claw grabbed the head in the middle of the dog and lifted him up. Brother Andre, let go first. There was a voice. Is very unfamiliar, and Tao seems a bit familiar. Is full of majesty, like thunder blowing in my ears. He unconsciously let go of his mouth and turned his head to look. What kind of monster is this? Is this monster calling me big brother? Andre fell into suspicion, but immediately he saw Armin hiding on the back of the monster, which made him relieved. At least this monster is his own. Then Andre only felt that he was empty, and the dog had been completely lifted up, his body struggling violently in the air. Oh, its 3 heads are wailing. Forgive me! Forgive me! Lord Dragon! Forgive me! I am willing to serve you as your lord. The demon dog hurriedly spoke. This was the first time it had spoken since it appeared, and its voice was a little hoarse. Witty, he can see that the strength of this giant dragon is much stronger than the average legend. More terrible than the legendary demons in hell. Spare you? Silent thought for less than a second, and said, You are so big, following me. It will make me very inconvenient. It's better to pinch you to death. I can get smaller. After he finished speaking, his body immediately shrank, and at the end, Shillong could only pinch gently with 2 paws. Woo-woo after getting smaller. The dog has red fur, round eyes, and only 1 head. It looked like a husky with its tongue sticking out. My lord, it's small enough now. Let me go. Our Hellhound clan is definitely the most loyal race. After that, the demon dog unconsciously gasped, and it was too nervous. 2. He wants to escape back to the abyss, but he knows that if there is a change, he will definitely be pinched to death by the opponent instantly. Shillong stared at him for a while, and suddenly thought that this dog's combat power was not bad, incomparable to Andre, but might be more powerful than Neferu. Is also a good combat power. The most important thing is that he is an abyssal creature. Thinking about going to the abyss in the future, Ciro still didn't pinch him to death. Okay, you can follow me from now on, Silem said. The devil dog was pinched, but his expression was extremely pleasant. Janshichi? Jingba. Thank my lord for forgiveness. Boom. Silem didn't pay attention to the devil dog, but stood up and walked towards the Dragon Lich Church. He walked very slowly. The turbulent aura was overwhelming the crowds of the Dragon Lich Church rushing to the front, and the water element on several paths disappeared after a slick. They canceled the summoning contract and returned to the elemental world. The elements have no intelligence except for the lowest level elements. For example, those summoned by mages above level 10 have not low intelligence, equivalent to the level of a human being about 10 years old. Wuxia world, that online, they know very well. The monster in front of you can't afford it. Some wizards of the Dragon Lich Church saw the dragon get closer and closer, and all their legs were frightened. Ordinary church members are not the life of a lich, they still maintain a human body. Was shocked by Shillong's momentum. Where would you dare to resist? There is confusion in his mind. Awesome. Is this your real body? It is perfect. You are the perfect Dragon Lich our church has been looking for. Kaka. Right here, the skull said. The flames in the skull are flourishing, and the voice of its soul is full of excitement. Has no sense of fear at all. Ugh. Silem glanced at the opponent slightly, his long tail stretched out his head, and then accompanied by a loud sound, he slammed into the skull's head. Boom! There is another loud noise. The tail has fallen to the ground, and the surrounding earth is cracking every inch, and the lost wizards nearby staggered and fell to the ground. Ciro gently raised his tail. Looked down. There was only a trace of his tail. Nothing. Kaka, I'm not so easy to deal with. Let us have a period of time. 7 or 80 meters away from Shillong's tail, the skull face said. In the moment just now, he used the flash technique that he had already prepared. Escaped. At the feet of the skull face, a magic circle slowly emerged, apparently about to escape. Ciro's eyes narrowed slightly. The air around the skull's face instantly became extremely thick. The huge gravity presses on it. The magic was interrupted instantly. Pong! Its entire skeleton was crushed to the ground by supergravity. Part 1. Chapter 83. The skeleton frame began to collapse instantly, cracking every inch. A powerful gravity magic, much stronger than the previous Dragonborn form. Skeleton Face knew that he might be dead, but there was no panic at all. This is a racial characteristic. The emotions of the skeletons are always extremely calm, and their emotions do not contain fear. There is another kind. They won't really die. Being a demi-lich life, Skeleton Face has a phylactery. He has divided his soul into several points before he is alive, and put them in several boxes in different positions. As long as the soul gem inlaid on the skull's forehead shatters, then the soul fragments of his body will automatically return to the nearby box, and the consciousness will be pluralized again. They also seem to have eternal life. Skeleton Face is now very calmly comparing the gravity spell that Ciro has cast at this time, comparing it with the previous cast on the Black Blood Beast Believer. Gravity is far better than before. What a powerful spell. The last time it was at level 9? I really want to learn it, said his soul voice. Boom. Gravity has been increased again. At this time, even if his skeleton body has magical protection, it can no longer bear it. Was pressed into powder instantly. The gems on the forehead were also split into several pieces. In a short time, A purple-black, illusory soul floated out of the gem. The three-headed dog, who turned into a husky, opened his round eyes and glanced at it, and he let out a few breaths in his mouth. As a creature, he has the ability to look directly at the soul, and Shillong obviously also has this ability. He looked at the floating soul several steps and flicked his tail after approaching the opponent. Bump! The huge tail swept across the illusory soul and hit the ground heavily, moving again. The illusory soul slowly floated out and appeared in Shillong's vision. He seemed to take a look at Zero with a little surprise. Then his face was mocking, a soul with a skull face. Zero didn't know why he felt mockery on his face. He began to drift backwards quickly. Seeing that his physical attack was ineffective, Shillong took a breath of dragon. This is just a very ordinary dragon's breath, similar to an ordinary dragon. The stream of red gold flame spreads forward in a cone shape. Cover 100 meters ahead. Shillong's flames are extremely powerful. Even if it is not for nuclear silence, the power is stronger than the average red dragon. When this red gold fire encounters the ground soil, it is like a flame encountering foam, and the ground soil instantly melts, turned into a ball of fiery red lava, rolling. The flame covered the group of souls, and in an instant a stern sound, a roar from the soul sounded, and then annihilated. The flame stopped, and the soul disappeared. Whirring, whirring, the demon dog was lifted on its paws, and the lower body was unconsciously cold, and a few drops of urine fell. As creatures, if they die during the summoning, they are not actually dead. Instead, they will return to the abyss and become demon eggs, rebirth in the abyss. But this is not much different from death. Their memory is it is likely to be eliminated, and the strength has been over. As a high-level three-headed hellhound, he was afraid to come again, so he surrendered when he was threatened with death. But he was even more afraid of dying directly, so that there would be no chance of rebirth. Is the monster dragon in front of him a certain level of Abyss Lord? There is actually a way to directly destroy the soul. It's really scary. Fortunately, I was wise before and chose to surrender. The dog can't help but think. With the death of the skull head, those hostile alliances instantly collapsed. They turned around and wanted to run, but his legs couldn't move anyway, and his body was already weakened by the terrible long way, and he collapsed to the ground with a slight movement. But Shillong won't let them go. The precise gravity control instantly appeared on their heads, covering all the enemies. Boom! In an instant, more than 20 human-shaped pits appeared on the ground. A scream of sorrow and screams made people creepy. They clearly and slowly felt the process of their bodies deforming. Squash, shatter, smash, and die. Even though this time lasted only a short 2 seconds or so, it made them terrified to the extreme. At the moment of death, they felt a sense of relief. All enemies are wiped out. Speaking a lot, in fact, after Shillong showed his true body, although it was slow, it was only a few dozen seconds. Even if there were 2 giant dragons before, the team of 20 or 30 soldiers who were invincible disappeared. There seems to be an exceptionally unreality. Lucia and others still stayed where they were, dare not to speak, and fled. Ha! Finally knocked them down. Shillong, you bastard. It should have been this way. Look at Andre, this bastard, and Sister Neferu are both injured. Armin felt relieved on Shillong's back. Laughed. Are you Shillong? At this time, Neferu's body was full of scorched black colors. This was lightning by the lightning element, and there were still many places with blood, and many scales were broken. Fortunately, the vitality of the dragon is extremely powerful, but there are not many obstacles. At this time, Neferu looked at Shillong's true body with a little surprise, and his words were full of disbelief. It's me, Sister Neferu. I'm sorry for hurting you, and Brother Andre. After Zero said, his body shrank for a while, and he became the same as the Dragonborn before, and he was still there. Behind him, Armin, who was holding him tightly, pulled it off. It doesn't matter, these injuries are nothing. Neferu breathed a sigh of relief and said with some relief, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. This is really great. Shillong, how old are you this year? Why are you pretending to be a child? It's a bit embarrassing to me, but fortunately, you are here today, otherwise it would be really dangerous. These guys are quite prepared. Thinking of the past, you read www.yuyukensha.com and underestimate each other, feeling embarrassed. What kind of kid is this? Obviously a monster above the very old stage, is pretending to be tender. The most irritating thing is, we dragons still believe it. What does Brother Andre mean by this? Shillong didn't know why. Let's talk about it. How do I call you from now on? Is it Uncle Shillong or Uncle Shillong? Andre long grinned. However, he immediately got involved with the injury on his body, and he gasped in pain. His injury is much heavier than Neferu, because of the contest with the dog and the occasional magical attacks of the demi-lich. The dragon blood on the ground is out of a big piece. Brother Andre, you misunderstood. I'm the Shillong you know. Armin's brother. 40 years old this year. Shillong said. Look serious. Huh? Andre and Neferu looked at each other. Didn't this guy laugh? Then he looked at Armin again. Seeing Andre's suspicious appearance, Armin laughed and said, Ha ha, Andre. Of course Shillong is my brother. This is 100% of the matter. We are the same father and the same mother. Born in a batch of eggs. He was very proud when he spoke, with 2 hands in his back, as if it was him who had just shown his power. Brothers are the same father and mother. The same batch of eggs? Then why is Shillong so big? And you are only so young. Andre couldn't help asking. Armin, how to talk? This bastard. Shillong and I are brothers. Dear, this is my normal body shape. That guy grows so big. I am also desperate. Part 1. Chapter 84. Armin didn't speak, and just stared at Andre quietly, his eyes full of resentment. Andre couldn't bear the look in the other party's eyes. He smiled awkwardly. Okay. You are the Shillong brother I know. Are you mutated? I heard that the 5-color dragon appeared recently. After a few mutant dragons, I didn't expect to have such a strong one. He was a little emotional. Yes, that's what Teacher Kama said. Asylum replied. After chatting for a while, Andre focused his gaze on the demon dog who was still being carried by him. He said, just take this dog by your side. You know he's a creature. Seeing that Andre, the bastard, brought the topic to his side, the magic dog was shocked. This guy must be revenge. I bit him before revenge. Damn, golden dragon. Is this trying to kill me? Fuhuera thought of this and stared at Shillong with 2 round eyes. Asylum glanced at him silently, then threw him to the ground. Don't be cute in front of me. You know. The dog turned over and nodded quickly. The strength of this dog is pretty good. It's a shame to kill, Asylum said. And I have a way to control him, Shillong said, taking out a sheepskin scroll from the space ring. The scroll is full of unknown aura. This is Devil's Contract? The dog was shocked when he saw it. As an abyssal creature, is naturally very familiar with the demons living in hell. These were created by the gods to grab jobs with them. They also need soul, and it is different from the demons arbitrarily killing the enemy and taking the soul. The demons are good at seduce humans and sign contracts with each other. As long as the content of the contract is completed, they can harvest their souls. And the credibility of the devil is pretty good among humans. There are always desperate people looking for the devil and offering their souls. For this reason, the abyss that originally owned this business was completely violent. They really can only rely on killing to get their souls. The devil's contract has a magical energy-binding nature, and a devil can only sign 5 contracts at a time. Hearing the words of the magic dog, Andre and Neferu both looked at Shillong in amazement. This is what I learned from my teacher Karma. Don't be so surprised. Asylum replied. Since it is the meaning of Elder Karma, that's it. The dragon uses the devil contract. No problem. Come on, sign it. Shillong said to the enchanted dog, his eyes flickering. And obviously the consequence of not signing is death. Zhang Shiqi didn't dare to think about it, and quickly bit his paw and signed his name. Then a devil with goat head inside the sheepskin roll flew into Zhang Shiqi's chest. He clearly knew the content of the contract, and he must be loyal to Shillong. And Shillong's contribution was simply to fill his stomach. From then on, he is really Shillong's dog, the kind that can't resist. Unless you can reach the top of the legend, maybe you can terminate this contract. That's right. To subdue this dog, there is another advantage. That is to allow him to work for us for free. How to say it is also a high-level beast. Let him shoot movies for free. Isn't it great? Shillong said. Huh? Andre's eyes lit up when he heard this. Yes, indeed. This obvious master-servant relationship. Shillong can completely avoid paying the employment gold coins. A magic dog with a monster level of 13 to 14. Even if it becomes a human, its power speed will be above level 10. How expensive is it to hire a person like this? This is actually free. Shillong is really amazing. We'll do business. I have to learn more from him. Andre immediately set his mind right. His 20 years of business, compared with Shillong, is still somewhat inadequate. Did not expect this. These evil creatures, as long as they are recovered, there is no need to pay for them. No wonder those 5-color dragons like to subdue evil family members. It turned out to be because of this. No need to spend your own treasure. If you feed at most meals, you can make these silly people grateful. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, Andre felt that these evil creatures became so cute. He looked at the magic dog with a weird look and unconsciously trembled for a long time when he looked at the dog's leg. Is this guy thinking of any way to frame me? That's right. Asylum looked at a few hundred meters away, and Lucia, who was standing still, said, His Royal Highness has other actors. Can you come over? He used the sound amplification spell, and the voice clearly reached Lucia and the actor's ears. These people nodded quickly and ran to Shillong. More than 24 actors and actresses. Because of the lack of equipment, the knights did not have the griffin by their side, their combat power was low, and basically all of them were wounded, and some were seriously injured. Even the left side of her waist and abdomen was slightly scratched. Fortunately, Shillong took time out of the battle to add buffs to these guys. Otherwise, many people will definitely die. He glanced at these guys, ran to the seriously injured person, and started to treat them. Among these guys, there's not a priest. At this time, Shillong has to rely on an arcane mage. Arcane mage also has a lot of healing spells, barely stopping the wounds of these seriously injured people. Began to treat several minor injuries, treating more than 20 people at a time. This kind of continuous treatment is very magical and lasts for more than an hour. If you change to an ordinary person, the magic power has long been exhausted. At least a priest of level 15 or above can afford it. But these mana consumption is nothing but trivial to Shillong. After he finished the treatment, he said to Andre, who had transformed into a human form, "Do you need treatment?" "Forget it. We don't need treatment." Andre and Neferu refused. The healing spells are not particularly top-notch. In fact, they can't be fully recovered. The previous knights have been healed, and they need to be trained for a period of time. And they will also reduce their lifespan. These lifespans will not be too much. Severe injuries will be reduced by 1 to 2 years, and minor injuries will take a few days or months. At least level 8 spells are required to reduce the consumption of these lifespans. Andre and Neferu, as giant dragons, are extremely resilient and do not want to recover from their injuries at the expense of lifespan. Even if the dragon's lifespan is long enough, they don't want to spend their life. This is as important as their treasure. Next, Shillong apologized for this incident. In his opinion, these guys were completely unjustified. He gave 30 gold coins for minor injuries and 60 gold coins for serious injuries. Can be regarded as comforting them a little bit. This time the gold coins paid are really a lot, and it almost makes Shillong's heart start to twitch. He can only hold back his regret. The memory of the blue star in the previous life made him feel that he must compensate Wuxia World. Online, even if these guys don't compensate these guys, they dare not complain. But this is not what he wants. He is a good person. Good dragon. So Shillong compensated these guys. This moment makes these guys happy. There is such a good thing. Was a little injured, but he didn't die anyway. 1 or 2 years of wages for nothing. Cool. Is the dragon originally such a generous creature? Which fool wrote the Dragon magazine? It says they love gold as life? I bother. These idiots don't understand dragons at all. Good metal dragon. I praise you all. These griffin riders, if they are injured at work, although there are compensations, they are actually very rare. Shillong compensated so much. He used Blue Star's experience to give benefits to these guys. Andre, Armin, and Neferu on one side covered their chests with their distressed hands, and they couldn't even speak. But at this time they dare not say much. After all, they still have the ability to distinguish right from wrong. These guys are indeed the poor people who have suffered. That's right. There is one more thing to tell you. Shillong said to the ordinary people. Just say it. The Griffin Knights, the original youth captain, had always looked at Shillong a bit uncomfortable, and now he nodded and bowed. Seeing the true face of the other party, he didn't dare to be hardened at all in front of the other party. Drop it any way you want. This is something you can't afford to provoke. That strength is legendary for the most time, right? Part 2. The Griffin Rider captain doesn't know much about the strength above the legend. Anyway, they're all big figures in the legend. There are only 2 words to describe them in the impression, and I can't afford to offend them. Can't afford to offend. Do you like this site? Donate here. Part 1. Chapter 85. What happened today, especially the problem with my real body. Don't say anything, understand? Shillong said, although the enemy has been killed. But these ordinary people are the most troublesome. He can't stop talking. After all, he was a 3 good youth in his previous life. This life is Shillong again. How can there be that heart to destroy ordinary people? Is a warning at most, although it feels useless. Of course. Don't worry. We are absolutely tight-lipped, the captain quickly assured. Shillong then glanced around the other people. These people are like quail, nodding their heads. No one dares to have other meanings, at least on the surface. Even the princess dare not have it. Since everyone is like this, then I can rest assured. Let's rest for 2 months afterwards. I believe it will almost recover by then. Let's continue filming, Shillong said. The others did not dare to disagree and nodded repeatedly. Then Shillong let them go. By the way, and when your dog stays in front of people in the future, don't talk casually, and don't call my master when there are no outsiders. Call me the boss. You know? What age is this? Is still called master? It's not your hell. Make me like a devil. Nothing. Soren said. Yes, Lord. Boss. Zhang Shiqi replied and stopped talking, just breathing out from time to time. Shillong glanced at him. This guy's brain is quite bright. In pure blood, is a 3-headed dog after all. In the end, Shillong packed up the spoils. The great axe of the former believer with the axe, and the staff with the skull face. These two things are very valuable at first sight. Can't lose it. Okay, let's go back, Silem said finally. Walked a few steps after speaking, but Andre shouted, "Wait, there are still important things left to deal with." Zero and others looked at him. I saw this guy suddenly knelt down and took out a few cans and a big sword from the ring of space. Then there was no one else to dig up the soil. Shillong couldn't see clearly, so, "What are you doing?" "These are my blood. Can't be wasted. This is very valuable in human society. Many mages like this kind of top alchemy material. That's it, at least a few hundred gold coins." A long time ago, Andre even had plans to sell blood, but in the end he gave up because it takes a lot of time to cultivate. Just take the current injury, and it will take at least a year to recover. He is usually in a weak state. I have to shoot in 2 months, but I promised it won't be affected, but I haven't fully recovered. Usually eat more food. It is not a small expense for the dragon to eat more. Now recovering his own blood, it can be considered as recovering the cost of treatment. As soon as the remaining Sanlong listened to Andre's words, his eyes flashed. Neferu hurried to dig where he was bleeding heavily, while Armin wanted to dig directly at Andre. But it was stopped by Andre. In his words, "This is his blood. Why do you dig it?" If Shillong came to dig, after all, there is a life-saving grace. It is almost the same. Zero wants to dig too. Those were all gold coins, but he still wanted a face, and finally resisted not digging, and watched the 2 dragons with ups and downs. And then his party of dragons left here. In an unknown space hundreds of kilometers from here. This is like a closed cave. The whole space is dark. The only light is a soul fire floating in the air. This is a skull head, is a lich creature. The purple and black soul fire is full of unknowns. He was sitting on a seat in a completely dark environment. His skeleton arms, not wrapped in the cloak, were exposed, and he turned page after page at the book in his hand. He looked very seriously, very carefully. The whole space was quiet and there was no noise. Until, click was placed on the edge of the space, and a box suddenly opened. This attracted the attention of the lich who was reading the book seriously. He was like a nobleman, putting down the book gracefully and closing it gently. Turned his head to look at the box. Contains a gem, and this gem suddenly shines, corresponding to the spirit fire of the lich. What happened? Tell me. The spirit of the sitting lich made such a voice. Cold, without any emotion. Teacher, what's wrong with me? I remember that I followed your order and went with the followers of the Black Blood Beast to catch a few dragons. A voice of soul came from this gem. It was originally true, but it was obvious that something went wrong. You failed, and you died there once. Lich said, "Yes, I'm dead. My soul is destroyed." Soul Gem said, "This gem is the Demi-Lich who was crushed to death by Shillong before, a 19th level wizard. As a Demi-Lich, he also divides his soul into several points. As long as he dies, he will be resurrected nearby. But he didn't expect that in his death this time, even a part of his soul would be wiped out. This caused him to be hit hard. His strength dropped by at least 1 level. Wuxia World Online, and there was no memory of being killed by Shillong. Liches have divided their souls, and memories are shared. Their memories will pass through the main body and be copied to the secondary body every day, but the sudden death of the soul caused him to lose this part of the memory. He doesn't even know how he died or who killed him. So Teacher, I didn't complete your task. Teacher, please punish me." The voice in the soul gem is tinged with guilt. This is weird. A half-lich, how guilty? It's okay. This shows that the information provided by the Black Blood Beast believer is wrong. And it also means that there is a problem with our detection. "Those dragons are not as simple as the surface," said the lich. "But teacher..." "Okay, I said it. It doesn't matter. In our long life, failure is insignificant. We should get used to it next time we have enough preparations. The opponent's strength is obviously above the legend. Your failure is just inevitable. Reassemble your body first, then go down." The words of the lich were as indifferent and cold as before, and he didn't care about this failure at all. "Yes, teacher," Jewel said. Immediately, the gem flew out of the box and flew downward. Through the slight light of the soul fire, you can see a pile of bones on the ground. Stacked on top of each other, strange bugs are swimming on it. The gem flies directly into a skull and is inlaid into the forehead. This gem eroded the bone and was completely embedded in it. Then the skull's head brightened. Part 1. Chapter 86. Soul fire filled the entire skull head, and then other surrounding bones quickly spliced together with the head as the center. Click, 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 click. After a short while, a guy who looked like a skeleton soldier straightened up. His body flashed with purple and black light, and a cloak was already on his body. He bowed slightly to the lich in front of him, and then a dark, purple light flashed, and he disappeared into the cave. The dark, underground space has once again recovered its calm. Only the occasional page-turning sound of the lich when turning the book. Sand, sand, sand. Shillong City. Zero and others have returned to the city, but at this time, they are a little bit idle. The only group of people was Silum and Armin who were not harmed in any way. The two dragons began to hang out and watch movies made by other chambers of commerce. Movies are generally weak in fighting, and most of them are emotional dramas. Maybe it's because fighting scenes need to hire masters, so it's too expensive. Anyway, Shillong and Armin are not interested after watching a few movies. Then Shillong stayed at home for 2 days, patted his head one last time, and decided to do something. Go learn swordsmanship. If he had excellent swordsmanship before and had rich combat experience in human beings, then he would not need to be transformed back into a dragon and would not need to disclose information. With the power of his own dragonborn body, plus spells, and 3 gravity, he can definitely defeat the previous Black Blood Beast believer. So Zero decided to learn combat techniques. He directly asked Andre about the best place to study in the city, and he was ready to set off. Before the departure, the boy Armin also followed. After the previous attack, he always felt unsafe not to follow Shillong. The place where the two dragons, when is in the center of the outer city, is called General Swordsmanship Academy. I hope that every academy can become a general-level swordsman after learning. The entire college is still very large. After all, it is the best college. The students are divided into 3 groups: Star Group, Month Group, and Day Group. 3 groups collecting all talents from the 3 stages. The Star Group grade is a place for civilian geniuses provided by other colleges to study. The group is mostly composed of small local nobles. In the group, most of them are made up of big nobles and wealthy children, and there are many transfer students. If you ask which group is the best, that's hard to say, but generally compete in the Star Group and the Japanese group. One party is a genius who stands out from hundreds of millions of ordinary people. One party is a genius made up of a rich family and various resources. It's hard to say which of the 2 geniuses is better. After all, the genius of civilians, after proving that they are good enough, there will be a force willing to support and draw back and provide resources. Zero did not plan to study for a long time this time, but just came to study for 2 months so that he could only join the temporary class. He first paid the registration fee for one person, 3 gold coins for 1 month, and then someone took Shillong and Armin to the practice place. It was a very empty classroom or sword practice field. There are dozens of students practicing in pairs. An instructor is patrolling. When he saw Shillong, Armin, and a guide who walked in, he walked straight over. This trainer looks very strong. He is definitely a fitness coach-level figure, and his height is more than 1.9 meters. Now holds an unopened ironwood sword for teaching. This is Shillong's choice. When choosing to practice swordsmanship, the academy gave 3 choices. One is a thin sword, the other is an ordinary one-handed sword, and a 2-handed sword. The power of Shillong is far beyond human beings, so the iron and wood sword is naturally chosen. After he walked over, the guide briefly explained the situation and left. The coach looked up and down Shillong and Armin for a while and said, "You 2 are sure to learn the use of 2-handed swords? Actually, I think this may not be suitable for you. Look at the 2 of you, a dragonborn. Although the power of the dragonborn is inherently stronger than that of our humans, you are too small and your body is not fully mature. There's another elf? The power of elves is weaker than that of humans. I think it would be more appropriate for you to learn rapier. Look at the ironwood sword in my hand. The sword is 1.5 meters long, 10 centimeters wide, 2 centimeters thick, and weighs about 14 pounds. Are you sure you can easily swing this sword? Know that a real 2-handed sword will only be heavier than this." The coach kindly reminded. "Let's give it a try." Shillong said he wanted to play with the coach's big sword, but Armin rushed ahead of him, quickly took the coach's big sword, and started to play. He swiped the sword with one hand, left and right about 30 or 40 times. He started to hold the sword in both hands, and then he swung it 7 or 80 times before putting the sword down and said, "Oh, it's really heavy. I can't turn around with one hand. I must have both hands. My strength is regressing." Armin was sighing, the decay of his power after he became an elf. But in the ears of the coach, it's not the case. This level of waving is obviously qualified in strength. Only a small half of the students present can reach Armin's level. Is this despising his initial words? Must be despising his initial contempt. The coach's face is a bit ugly. He looked at Zero with a dark face and motioned for him to go up and try. Zero nodded freely and took the ironwood sword, which was much heavier than the ordinary long sword around his waist, but it was still light in his hands. Feels like holding a small branch, very light, waved dozens of times without any feeling of fatigue. "Okay, stop it. Your strength is beyond doubt. You are indeed qualified to practice great swords." The coach said to stop Shillong from continuing. "However, although your strength is very good, Wuxia World.online, but swordsmanship. Profound meaning does not lie in strength. He also needs skills. You are willing to come here to learn, obviously because of lack of skills. Then, Compete with the students here to see the gap between yourself and others. This will help you improve. This fairy classmate. It's up to you to come first. Don't call me elf classmate. Almond took Shillong's big sword. Call me Armin Armin, this is my name, next to my brother Shillong. Okay. Then, classmate Armin, please go to the middle first, and I will arrange the opponent for you. After the coach finished speaking, he walked to the middle. Armin and Shillong quickly followed. When he came to the middle zone, the coach clapped his hands and said, "Okay, everyone stop for a while. Then we will welcome 2 more students here. Now, Peter, come up and play with them. Let them see what you are. Strength." When all the students heard the coach's words, they stopped immediately and looked at the 3 people in the middle. One of the trainees was particularly strong. A man with short golden hair and a particularly square face walked out. He is exactly what the coach calls Peter, the strongest among these temporary students. These temporary students have failed the entrance examination, but they want to study in the general sword students, and young geniuses who have not yet reached school age. And because of his age advantage, Peter temporarily ranks first in this temporary class. Age 18. Is now a level 6 fighter. Is enough to be called a little master in the outside world, but at the Genius General Sword Academy, he is not even qualified for admission. He has been studying here temporarily for more than a year. The strength has changed from the original level 5 to the current level 6. Part 1. Chapter 87. Peter came to the middle, said hello to the coach, and then faced Shillong and Armin. "Which of you 2 will come first?" the coach asked on the side. I'm first. Armin was very positive, with a smile on his face. Both sides back off each. Keep a distance of 6 meters. Ready to start. The coach said again. Armin and Peter did the same, and then started to play with the coach. Armin carried the ironwood sword and rushed directly to Peter. There is only one thought in the mind of those who have never learned swordsmanship. Raise the sword and slash it on the opponent's forehead. When the students around saw Armin's behavior, they knew that this guy was a layman without any foundation. There was also a little disdain in Peter's eyes. He didn't use any exquisite swordsmanship, but also held up an iron sword to cut at the opponent. Clang Taimu and Taimu clashed with each other, making a sound of metal crowing. Peter only felt a strong attack. His arms were a little numb, and his heart was startled. This spirit so much strength. I underestimated him. Armin also felt a strong force attacking him, making his hands a little numb, which made him gritted his teeth secretly. This spirit form has weakened too much. Cut a human student, but he can't win with his strength. What an annoying feeling, just when he wanted to lift the sword back, and then continue cutting. On the opposite side, Peter changed his tricks. The big sword slashed towards Armin. Because of the sudden change in power, Armin hadn't reacted quickly, so his iron and wood sword was pushed to the right and moved horizontally to the right without waiting for him. Changing his own strength, the opponent's ironwood sword was placed on his neck. Damn it! Armin knew he had lost. Lost to a kid who was still a student. This made him secretly angry, and he wished to turn back into his real body and have a good fight with the opponent, especially the expression in the opponent's eyes after victory. Really owe it. After winning the victory, Peter only gave a sword salute and then stopped talking. The classmates who watched the game did not applaud him, because it seemed inevitable to them. A swordsman who has been studying for nearly 2 years and is the most powerful swordsman among this group of people. Is it strange if he doesn't win? Armin angrily handed the sword to Shillong and said, Shillong, it's up to you. We must let that guy know how good our brother is. Don't fall into the reputation of the Soderbergh family. You want to win beautifully. Taking the ironwood sword, Shillong glanced at Armin a little speechlessly. It was your boy's performance just now that was depraved. Do you think I am your weak chicken? Ciro secretly said in his heart, but said, Don't worry. Then he walked to the middle of the arena and nodded to the opponent. Peter also had a smile at the corner of his mouth, but it was a little careless. Under the start of the coach, Xylem also quickly approached the opponent, and then, just like Armin, slashed at the opponent with a sword. The person next to this trick shook his head. The 2 brothers are exactly the same, and they were defeated by this trick just now. How dare to come? The disdain in Peter's eyes grew stronger, and he didn't change his moves and greeted him with a sword. When the 2 swords were about to approach, Shillong's great sword suddenly accelerated. With a cry, disappeared in everyone's eyes. Before they could react, they heard a clang. The ironwood sword in Peter's hand has been knocked into the air, and the sword in Shillong's hand has also been placed on Peter's neck. Is silent now. Peter looked at Shillong in disbelief, his hands still trembling now. Just now he felt a force majeure. This powerful is unimaginable. I am like a child, facing a strong man. The 2 sides are not at the same level at all. The sword flew just at the moment of the fight. His sword is now falling on the ground 10 meters away. It seems that I won? Xylem said lightly. Ha ha ha, Shillong. You really didn't disappoint me. You didn't lose my face. Alman laughed loudly, with a smug expression on his face, as if he was not the one who lost just now. Have you seen it? This is the strength of our brother, he said. How could you be so strong? Peter couldn't believe it, and even felt ridiculous. You are so strong, so you still come to learn swords? Other students also felt ridiculous. They killed Peter, the strongest among the students. What kind of sword did they come to learn? This strength, the last time it was level 10 or above. This dragon descendant. Are you here to provoke? Look at the black scales on his skin. This is the Dragonborn. This guy is really upset and kind. Thinking of this, the students immediately became hostile to Shillong and Armin. Are you here to compete? Coach's face is also not very good, but he still restrained himself and euphemistically described the provocation as a discussion. Silo knew that the situation was good, so he said, I've already said it. I'm here to learn swordsmanship. I really don't know how to use swordsmanship. I just have more strength. As a Dragonborn, I just inherited a stronger power from me as the Dragon Mother. He explained, Are you serious? The coach looked at Shillong and felt that the other party's attitude was more sincere, Wuxia world, than online, at least much more comfortable than that supposedly elegant elf. These two guys have changed personalities, an arrogant elf, a relatively mature and indifferent demon Dragonborn? Of course, I don't make such a joke. Silem said, Okay, the coach finally chose to believe. Then you are really a potential student. Your strength should be very huge. Now use your full strength to swing the sword in your hand. Let me see. The coach said, Okay, Silo responded, before raised his hand high, then suddenly waved it down, whose slap accompanied by the swing of the ironwood sword. Everyone seemed to hear a soft noise. A group of people looked around. Nothing seemed to happen to the entire martial arts field. The students had no idea why the coach asked Zero to swing the sword. Didn't understand what the soft noise just now represented. They only know that Shillong's sword is fast. Can't see it at all. And the sound of swinging the sword seems to be much louder than them. So the expressions of these students are calm. But the coach's expression is not calm. He stared at his own eyes and looked at Shillong in horror. Sword chi is a bit uncomfortable to speak, which shows the horror in the other party's heart at this time. The other students heard the word Jianqi and looked at each other. How could the coach be so good with this expression and still shouting Jianqi? What is Jianqi? Of course they know. This is a move that only a powerful sword warrior can wield when he is extremely close to the legend. Part 1. Chapter 88, Is the Sword Spirit Strong? Is not great, because the sword chi is only caused by swinging the sword too fast. How lethal is this kind of thing? In actual combat, it may only be useful to bully the weak. At the same level, few people use the strongest power with every sword. Because human strength has its limit. Even if it is a legendary warrior, you let him use every move with all his strength. I am afraid it is not 1,000 swords. It will be exhausted. With a legendary warrior, his sword aura can't kill a warrior wearing a plate armor. Can't shoot through the plate armor only because of sword energy. Of course, if the sword chi is a commoner, then with the power of a legendary warrior, as long as it hits the key, it can be killed. Therefore, sword aura is flashy, and no warrior expects sword aura to bring harm to fighters of the same level. And bullying the weak, you cut 1,000 swords to exhaustion. Even if you kill 1,000 people, what can you do? With the fighting skills of a legendary warrior, if he fights normally, he can easily kill 10,000 people. Fighting with fighters of the same level, first of all, depends on the weapon in your hand. If the weapon is stronger than the opponent, you will win half. Sword chi, although it is not used for actual combat, it is a proof of strength. Only the fighters who are extremely close to the realm of legend, go all out, can wield sword energy that can hurt the enemy. Of course, you must let the sword aura exert enough lethality. Just add battle spirit to it, but this is a waste of battle spirit. The legendary warrior is not willing to be so wasteful. Fighting spirit is the recycling of resources. Soldiers are studying how to save use, cover the body surface, and make themselves more powerful. Faster. There will be no fighters to attach the sword aura to the sword aura. The fighting spirit cleaved by this sword is enough for them to fight with high intensity for a minute or two. It's such a waste. And if 100 or 200 swords are cut, that legendary warrior will simply wither. In addition to pretending to be forced, no one will use it casually for the time being. But this is a symbol of strength. Because of this, the keen observing coach had already noticed the sword chi swayed by Zero when he made a soft noise just now. He looked at Silem in shock, and then continued for a while. You can actually wield sword energy? What? Can this dragon descendant wield sword energy? A group of students were dumbfounded, looking at their coach in disbelief. A few of them still disbelieve. Coach, did you make a mistake? How old is this dragon descendant? How can I use sword energy? You can understand by looking at the wall directly in front of him. The coach looked at the wall 10 meters in front of Shillong. A group of students looked at each other. The coach is serious. They also saw something was wrong, and a group of people immediately flocked to the wall, the coach said. I saw a scratch several millimeters deep and more than 1 meter long on the original white and seamless wall. This scratch looks extremely inconspicuous because its width is too narrow. It's not a close watch. I really can't see it. Now a group of students looked at the scratch, and they didn't know what words to use to speak. Just stared at Shillong blankly. This dragon descendant actually broke out with sword spirit. Dragonborn has such a high talent? Not necessarily. I heard that the talents of these guys depend on their strength as the dragon's parents. Then, the dragon mother of the Dragonborn in front of you must be a powerful and legendary dragon. Is really enviable. At a young age, he has such a talent. God is really unfair. When some guys are born, they have the talent that some people dream of. Is the culmination we want to pursue. You seem to be surprised? Is it amazing to be able to slash with sword energy? Shillong asked. Her ignorant look is really annoying. Hey, of course. The coach swallowed and said, with your sword aura, many 18th and 19th level fighters in the kingdom can't do it. Your strength has reached the level of a top fighter. Only level 18 or 19. Looking at what you guys look like just now, I thought only the legendary fighters could do what Shillong did. Armin on one side said again at this time. Seems to look at them a little contemptuously. How strange it is to despise them. The coach glanced at Armin. This fairy, why is it so annoying? OMG, why is there such an elf? I have lived for more than 30 years, and I have seen quite a few elves, and none of them are so polite. How can they be so annoying? Are you sure you want to practice great sword skills with us? The coach ignored Armin, but continued to ask Shillong. Of course, my brother and I will study here for 2 months. Shillong replied. That's good. The coach replied, and then let the students who were still observing the situation spread out to practice, and then left a space to explain the swordsmanship to Soren and Armin. Let's talk about the big sword first. It, along with axes, grabs, and knives, are the main weapons of the battlefield. Other thin swords, one-handed swords, can't be compared with big swords, but they are fancy weapons used by nobles and women. The main point of the great sword lies in its own strength, to win with strength, but this strength is not used indiscriminately. The know-how is also very important. Two people with no obvious difference in strength play against each other. Skill and momentum are the keys to victory. The coach stopped here suddenly and said to Armin, I believe that Armin has a deep understanding. Armin is just a simple sentence. Without waiting for Armin to say anything, the coach continued. The transformation of power and the transformation of moves. The coach has been talking for more than 10 minutes before he has finished talking about the knack of the great sword, and finally added, the above is all said, no matter how good it is not as true as the actual combat. You read www.uuvisha.com then, classmate Armin, you continue to practice against Peter. Having said that, the coach called Peter over again. Peter took his sword and fought Armin again. In this match, Armin didn't lose too ugly. He was killed by 1 move, but insisted on 5 or 6 moves. Then he was defeated because of the slower move. After Armin failed, the coach did not stop them, but asked them to go to one side to continue practicing. Then the coach said to Zero, okay, next we will practice. Although you are strong, but what I want to tell you is, power does not determine the outcome. This is also your original intention, to learn skills. As he said, the coach took a few steps with his hind legs slightly and put on a posture of competition. Wait, coach, I want to change the weapon. This weapon is too light to take advantage of it. Is there anything to focus on? Yes, the coach replied. You said that, it is true. I also think my weapon is too light. Let's change it. As he said, he walked towards the back door. Opening the back door, Shillong found that there was a weapon arsenal inside. Are all big swords without open fronts. The length, width, and thickness of this great sword are all different. The smallest specification is used by Shillong and other students. The coach walked to the mid-range and chose a weapon that was about 1.6 meters in length, but was much thicker and wider than the outside. The coach drew out the big sword from the weapon rack and swung it a bit. This sword is made of solid iron wood. It is much heavier than ordinary iron wood. The weight is about 140 pounds. Ordinary people can't lift him at all. Peter, the best temporary student outside, is exhausted with 3 or 4 swords. Part 1. Chapter 89. Only true generals can use it easily. And I, although only level 15, but excellent talent, so I can still use it. At the end, he was a little proud. 140 pounds and 127 pounds. This is the weight of an adult man. Such a heavy weapon is indeed quite powerful in high-intensity combat. Also has what a big sword should be. Silo nodded admiringly, then also walked to him, drew out a weapon of the same model, and swung it. Okay, how do you say? It's still so light. is a bit heavier than the small branches just now, but still too light. He shook his head and put it down. Why? It feels a little heavy, the coach asked. Although Zero had just proved his strength, he didn't think that the gap between himself and the opponent was very large. Actually, in the eyes of the coach, Shillong, as the dragon descendant, should have an excellent fighting spirit. After blessing a lot of fighting spirit before, that effect can be achieved. And now choosing a weapon, it is impossible to choose a weapon that generally needs to be blessed to be able to use it easily. At this time, his weakness is revealed. Maybe his own power is not as strong as mine, the coach said. It's too light, Silum replied. The coach took a breath, and the corner of his eyes jumped. Then go inside and choose yourself. Weapons must be handy. Zero nodded. He looked inside. There were 7 or 8 big swords. He walked down, pulled it out, played a sword flower, and put it back. What? Not satisfied yet. The coach's eyes jumped. Still too light. This one already weighs 160 pounds. Let's take a look. Zero came to the next one, pulled out, and danced a sword flower. Then plugged it back in, shook his head. Too light. Hiss. Phew. This one is 200 pounds. Next one. Still light. 250 pounds. Still light. 320 pounds. Zero and the coach walked to the last big sword. This is the last one. It leaned against an iron shelf. It's completely different from the previous big sword that was up to 2 meters long. More than 3 meters long. Silo glanced at it, then took his sword. And the coach now has no thoughts in his mind, he said blankly. This is the weapon of the giants. It uses steel and wood heavier than real iron wood. It is 3 meters long. It weighs 1,500 pounds. Oh, it feels good. Silum's eyes brightened. He lightly lifted the sword, and with a flick of his hand, a strong wind swept across it, blasting the clothes of the coach around him. How do you feel? The coach asked blankly. I looked at Shillong, who was only 1.5 meters tall and danced with a 3-meter-long giant sword. It felt extremely absurd. It feels like a 5 or 6-year-old child picking up an adult man and waving it. It's too unreal. Not bad. It's a good time. Silum replied, dancing the big sword into an afterimage. The entire weapon arsenal is filled with the sound of squalls. Several weapon racks were blown down directly. The coach looked at Shillong and didn't want to say anything. Okay, the weapons are also selected. Let's go out and have a try, Silum said to the other party. The coach took a breath. Hold the grass. Does compare? This weapon is so big, so heavy. I was accidentally beaten when I was in the game. Will I be shot to death? There's a little Harry in his heart. Can't do it. I can't just be so scared. I am a professional swordsman of level 15, the closest to the general level. How can you be afraid of a brainless great swordsman? I want to use my rich experience. Superb technology. Tell this Dragonborn the true meaning of a swordsman. The coach secretly cheered for himself. Let's go. Let's go out. The two came outside, and a group of students pretending to practice immediately cast their gazes. Seeing the weapon in Shillong's hand, they breathed wildly one by one. Hold the grass. What are you doing here? Fools believe you. This coach is a fool. It's not that you have to bring your life in, especially looking at this dragon descendant. He directly raised this extremely exaggerated sword. It doesn't seem to be too much effort. Is this something human? A group of students' eyelids jumped wildly. Zero and the coaches are in their respective positions. Shillong used his super giant sword to point at the opponent before he even started. With a big sword on his arm, the length is close to 4 meters. The coach looked at the big sword that was only 2 meters away from him and swallowed hard. Took a deep breath. The coach knows that he must face this guy with all his strength. Otherwise, there is absolutely no victory. Fighting spirit covered the whole body. The coach screamed. Holding the big sword, it had turned into a black afterimage and shot toward Shillong. And Zero also swung his big sword in an instant, sweeping towards the opponent. Rapid wind and thunder. The coach's fighting spirit is violent, and his body is extremely flexible. Quickly avoided the big sword, and then approached Zero. Because the opponent's weapon is too long, he can only win after being close. But Shillong's reaction speed is far beyond the coach's imagination. Not under him at all. Every time he changes his move, the other party can react. Thus, with a light swing of the big sword, you can dissolve your attack. The students on the side were dazzled. Only the standing Shillong is clear. The big sword and the trainer in his hand are almost beyond their sight. There is only a gust of wind in my ears because of the great sword being swung. The student's hair was blown in a mess wuxia world that online they felt their scalp tingling. These two people, just one person, can easily clean up dozens of them. The whirring wind is endless. Offensively for 1 minute, the coach still couldn't break Shillong's defense, and he turned a little pale. He tried his best just now, as if doing an anaerobic exercise. At this time, Even as a level 15 fighter, he was a little panting. Just when he was about to take a breath, Zero in front of him moved, and a sword slammed at him. Shock the coach broke out again with all his strength, and after dodged the danger, he hurriedly shouted, "Wait!" Silo immediately stopped the attack upon hearing this. How the coach breathed a sigh of relief. He had exhausted more than half of his physical strength after the full burst just now. If he continued to fight, he had to get down in 30 seconds. What a shame. Can't do it. Have to change it. He took a breath and slowly said, "It's not a way to fight like this. Since you are here to learn technology, you shouldn't use this kind of sword. Just like the students, then you can learn technology. This, didn't you say you want to take advantage of it before? Those things are too light." Silum said, "Before was before. I just wanted to test your full power. Now I know. Learn technology. Of course everyone uses the same weapon. Otherwise how to reflect technology, isn't it?" The coach said. You are right." Silum nodded. "Okay, let's go in, put the weapons away. Then come over again." The trainer breathed a sigh of relief, and Silum walked into the weapon arsenal and put the weapons away. Then came out again with the basic weapon. Part 1. Chapter 90. Now let's compare it again. But you can't use all your strength, or your strength will crush me. This will not exercise your skills. Come on, take your sword and face my sword. Slowly increase the force until I say stop. When the coach said that, he raised the big sword in his hands with both hands and stood in front of him diagonally, while Zero stepped forward, stuck his sword on the two swords in an X shape, and began to add strength. This is to let Shillong know how much power to use to fight. Slowly, the coach stopped. "Okay, use your current strength and practice with me," the coach said here, and then stepped back. After the two kept a distance of 6 meters, the coach couldn't help asking again. "You just used it. How much power?" "I don't know. I didn't make much effort anyway." The coach was slightly silent. "Isn't this too depressing? What is no force? Is this the gap between the Dragonborn genius and humans? There is such a power without the use of fighting spirit. Perhaps only a legendary barbarian warrior can compare it." The coach took a deep breath. "Let's get started. This time we will not use fighting spirit." As the coach's voice fell, the two rushed towards each other, and as they approached, both sides shot their swords separately. Clang. When the two swords collided, the coach quickly changed his moves, and Shillong changed his moves almost at the same time. Clang, 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 clang. The swords on both sides fought more and more densely, and the sound was almost connected. The fight between the two is basically invisible to the students. Two big swords dance into afterimages. There are more than a dozen changes per second, but the coach who was competing with Shillong was shocked. Generally speaking, ordinary swordsmen fight against each other, and their change speed is between 0.2 and 0.3 seconds. And the temporary students he teaches now are mostly between 4 and 6. The speed of changing moves is between 0.2 and 0.1 seconds. Obviously, Peter is the student with a change speed of 0.1 seconds. And he himself, as a 15th level swordsman who is close to the general level, his change time is only 0.05 seconds. But where is this guy in front of you? It's really equal to him. Maybe a little bit, but this is also the reason for not being familiar. The speed of changing moves will not be greater than 0.06 seconds. This is different from the unequal battle just now. Try your best to attack. The opponent just needs to defend a little. This is a relatively fair fight. How did this guy do it? You need to know that it doesn't matter that you need a very fast reaction speed, and you need to understand the swordsmanship he said before. I only talked about it before. The match just now wouldn't have much effect on him, right? Can do it. Are you sure you are here to learn swords? At this moment, he felt suspicious of the Shillong thief. "I believe your nonsense." Shillong's big sword bypassed the coach's big sword and slashed towards the opponent. This sword scared the coach directly. "I was distracted just now. Almost finished saying, can't think about other things." The coach used an ingenious force to shake Shillong's sword away and immediately confronted the enemy. The two played against each other for 70 or 80 rounds, and the coach found that his advantage was gone. The guy on the opposite side makes moves faster. This guy has become stronger in the contest with himself. Another 40 or 50 moves passed, and the coach gradually fell into a disadvantage. Sweat gradually appeared on his forehead, and Shillong's pressure was a bit too great. Until now, he has been unable to launch an effective counterattack. He can only do his best to defend. The clanging iron and wood clinked into one piece, and dozens of tricks passed. The sword in the coach's hand is horizontally in front, and the action is frozen. Shillong's sword was already on his neck. "I lost." He smiled wryly. Although he had been prepared for a long time, it was in the case of the opponent's full strength. But now the competition is tightly only skill, and the opponent defeated him, which really made him a little unacceptable. He has no idea whether the opponent is a master of swordsmanship, or whether the opponent is really a genius. As long as he has heard the essence of swordsmanship, he can fully control and defeat his peerless genius. The surrounding students were silent. They also knew that Shillong was suppressing their power at this time, but the other party also said that he was a beginner before, which would defeat a 15-level master swordsman with the same power. Does this really make them fools? How can such a person exist? The students glanced at each other. Although they didn't speak, the meaning was obvious. This dragon descendant came to pretend to be forced. Shameful. Good talent, great power? Isn't it a legend yet? What are you going to wear? A group of students thought sourly. Zero's current technical improvement is entirely due to his brain. After became a dragon, his brain was much stronger than that of humans. He feels that he is very ordinary at ordinary times, maybe just thinking more clearly than humans. But whenever he needs to study something or calculate something, his brain will appear in another state. It feels like turning into a computer. In this state, his memory will become profound, like looking at a tree. There may be thousands of leaves on the branches, each of which has a different texture, but he can remember it completely. It is precisely because of this that he can fully remember the essence of swordsmanship, the coach said, and gradually integrate himself into the next battle. You did a great job. I have nothing to teach you. The coach smiled bitterly. This is nothing to teach? Isn't there any powerful tricks in swordsmanship? Didn't you have been very good at fighting with me before? It flashed, and the speed was very fast. Silo said, Yes, but these are the stunts of those famous swordsmen, including me. There are also a few stunts, but these stunts can't be learned by paying, the coach said. You can't learn even if you pay? Humph, I don't believe it, Armin said at this time. Whether you believe it or not, the tuition you paid is only enough to learn what you are currently. Cut, I'll give you 1,000 gold coins. How about you teach me stunts? Armin said, 1,000 gold coins? The coach was blank and shook his head after a second of silence. 2,000. The coach was silent for 2 seconds. 2,000 gold coins? He has to save more than 10 years before he can save them. 5,000. Okay. The coach suddenly changed his words wuxia world. Online his eyes were full of righteousness. He looked at Armin with bright eyes and grabbed Armin's arms. Classmate, I teach. Oh, you let go. I was joking just now. What are you doing so seriously? Armin retorted. What a joke. Who would spend so many gold coins to learn the meaning of swordsmanship? It's not a good thing for me to hold a mattress. A fool would spend this wrong money. The coach took a deep breath, tried to suppress the urge to hack the elf, and slowly released his hands. Immediately faced Zero and said, Your Excellency, you have already graduated, but will your brother stay here to study? The coach is very polite to Shillong now, and the opponent's strength has to make him like this. Of course, he should stay here to study. Shillong said, Hey, why should I learn? I'm just following you. What else can I learn if you don't learn? Alman said, Learn it. It's no harm to yourself. The big deal is that I will pay for your money. What you said. Armin looked happy, but then he was a little worried. But, will you come here with me in the future? I'm alone. I feel dangerous. Counsel, don't know who you are like? The courage is so small. Zero was speechless. He asked the coach if there was a separate martial arts venue for him to practice. The answer is yes, but an extra 1 silver coin is required for 1 day. Silum gritted his teeth on this and promised to come to the students with Armin. But he finally said to Armin, You pay your tuition yourself. That's it. It's useless to object. He regretted paying Armin the tuition fee. Part 1. Chapter 91. Since the two have discussed it, then classmate Armin. You continue to practice swords, the coach said, his mouth slightly raised. Okay. I practice. He was a little reluctant, but seeing Zero's expression knew that he couldn't escape. Can only go to the middle and raise the sword in his hand. Seeing this, Peter on the side of immediately prepared to come forward to practice. Now that he sees Armin's accomplice, Silin, is so good, there are no other ideas. Instead, he is ready to practice with Armin. Maybe he can make friends, and he will benefit in the future. But the coach stopped him when he saw him going up. He smiled and said, Peter, you go back and continue training with Tom. Classmate Armin will leave it to me to practice. Seeing this, Peter felt a little helpless and had to return. And when Armin saw the others smile, he always felt that something bad was about to happen. Facts have also proved that something bad has indeed happened. The coach did not give in to his training at all. The back of the iron-wood sword slapped Armin's body around, and the name said, This is to make you learn faster. Silo didn't stop seeing this, as long as he didn't get killed or seriously injured. The next day, Shillong and Armin were preparing to go to the General Sword Academy and walk to the gate. The demon dog, who was supposed to be covered in red and majestic, looked at Shillong pitifully at his food bowl and wailed in his mouth. Seeing his eyes, it seemed that he had something to say, but he was forced to say something. Long forbade him to speak, so he could only whimper. The food bowl is all black bread that has been shredded and soaked in hot water. Why are you so poor? Silum asked. Woo. Zhang Shiqi looked down at the food bowl and began to call again. There's a guard watching him, but he dare not speak. Do you think things are bad? Woohoo! Zhang Shiqi raised his head, nodded, and looked at Shillong pitifully. You guy, I kindly take you in, give you something to eat. I even dislike it. Do you know how to report? Asylum said. This dead dog. I spent 12 copper coins every day to buy you black bread. Is this not enough? Several days ago, it cost me dozens of copper coins. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Zhang Shiqi called again. He secretly said in his heart, let me eat black bread and soak in hot water every day. Can I change the pattern? We'll eat dogs. Understand? He feels that his mouth is full of rough rye and sand now. This is how he can hold on and change to a normal dog. I was raised to death by you. Bastard. He didn't dare to say it. He could only use hum, pretending to be pitiful and constantly suggesting, but Asylum was not moved at all. Your uncle, taking in you this dog, is already showing kindness and still want to eat good food? White bread, sausage, barbecue? Save you. Ciro Lee ignored the dog and went to college with Armin as usual. The two guards next to looked at this scarlet, extremely handsome wolf-like dog, unconsciously showing a trace of pity in their eyes. These two guys were really stingy just now. As a distinguished guest of President Andre, his status will not be bad, and he will not be short of money if he wants to come, but I didn't expect to have pets like this. This dog is really unlucky. Woo. Zhang Shiqi looked at the back of Asylum leaving, his eyes full of despair. Is this kind of guy worthy of calling himself a metal dragon? Could there be such an evil metal dragon? 5-color dragons can't be so evil, right? I remember I heard from my compatriots who work for 5-color dragons that although those 5-color dragons have a bad temper, work for them. At least they are full of meat. And where am I now? Nibbling black bread every day. I'm so difficult. He silently ate a few bites of black bread, savoring the sand inside. Swallowed silent tears. Am I going to run away? He couldn't help but come up with this idea, but it was immediately rejected. He assigned a master and servant contract under the persecution of the other party. For the rest of my life, I can only be the other's dog. I need to strengthen myself. I need to take a closer look at this human world outside, and then look for the possibility of turning over. Zhang Shiqi thought so, took a few bites of black bread, and then left Andre's house. Began to wander the inner city. The buildings in the inner city are very beautifully decorated. In the morning, many nobles and wealthy businessmen will get up for a walk. These people are either holding their pets or strolling leisurely in pairs. Those dog lovers who led the dog, after seeing Zhang Shiqi, couldn't help but admire in their hearts, good dog. Some people even wanted to tease him, but when he stared at him, they were shocked, and then left quickly. Zhang Shiqi strolled around and came to a food store unconsciously. The food stores that can be opened in the inner city are all very high-end, specially prepared for the wealthy businessmen in the inner city. The store doesn't look very big, but there are a lot of things. Cheese, white bread, as well as various meat products, seafood products. Each is very sophisticated, placed on top. Occasionally a passing wealthy businessman will stop to buy. Zhang Shiqi looked at these things and couldn't help but stop. He stopped in place for a long time, staring blankly at the barbecue on it. I really want to eat barbecue. Miss me three-headed hellhound, noble canine demon in hell, superior race. It would be so downhearted. Really, the devil is blind. He unconsciously began to recall the past. What a happy day that is. Lives near the volcano. The ethnic group is the strongest in the area. When tired, he sleeps and eats when he wakes up. There are all kinds of monster meat. That meat is so delicious. So chewy. Occasionally go to the human world to beat the autumn breeze, fish a few souls, and eat a few humans with fresh skin and tender flesh. Really is the joy of life. Look at now, it's miserable. The dog staring at the barbecue showed longing in his eyes. How much he wanted to change back to the original and directly ate this human selling barbecue and those barbecues. Hey, stupid dog, go. Just as Zhang Shiqi was thinking, a voice suddenly interrupted his thoughts. The vendor who was in the house walked up to him and kicked him lightly. Maybe it's because there are no customers for some time, which makes the vendors a little boring, and feels that the dogs outside are a bit annoying. Came out and wanted to drive away. Zhang Shiqi was a little annoyed by the vendor's kick. He wrinkled his nose, exposed his fangs, and showed a vicious expression at the vendor. This trader is just an ordinary trader. He was taken aback by the death gaze of the dog, Zhang Shiqi, and returned to the store in anguish. Then Zhang Shiqi was fascinated by the barbecue again, and the saliva in his mouth fell to the ground unconsciously. Woo, 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 woo. I want to eat. Want to eat. I want to eat. What a mighty and cute dog. And it's red. Suddenly a voice sounded. Immediately after this voice, he said, Cute little guy, do you want to eat? Hearing this, Zhang Shiqi finally couldn't help turning his head and looking towards him. This is a beautiful woman in red and gorgeous clothes. She is only in her early 20s. The figure is outstanding. looked at him at this time. His beautiful face was full of smiles. You must want to eat it. The ground is all your saliva, the woman said with a smile. You reading www.yukisha.com. Then she said to the vendor, give me a copy of this barbecue and this one. Okay, Miss Julia. The vendor showed joy, but he didn't expect this dog to bring himself an extra income. It seems that this dog will come again in the future and don't have to drive away. The vendor happily handed the woman Julia's food to her. Because Zhang Shiqi's favorite food has changed owners, he unconsciously focused his attention on Julia's tote bag containing the food. Want to eat? The woman asked. Whoa, Zhang Shiqi nodded. Come on, eat. These are all yours. Julia put the handbag on the ground and opened it to reveal the meaty food inside. Whoa, Zhang Shiqi's dog eyes brightened, and in an instant he stepped forward and went to the front of the food, gnawing frantically at the food. The whole head is fully inserted into the handbag. There was enough food for 2 people, and he only took a few minutes to eat it all. The depression for several days seems to have disappeared. Part 2. It turns out that the human world is not as vicious as I thought. I swear, never eat people anymore. He stuck out his tongue happily and showed a kind expression at Julia. Good dog. Really good. Julia seemed very happy and smiled and touched Zhang Shiqi's head. And Zhang Shiqi did not refuse the other party because of this meal. After rubbing for a long time, Julia stood up and said, Okay, good dog. I have something to leave. See you tomorrow, she said, blinking at Zhang Shiqi. This eye seemed to contain some deep meaning, and finally waved her hand and left. Do you like this site? Donate here. Part 1. Chapter 92, General Sword Academy. Shillong and Armin separated after arriving. Armin went to the academy to continue to be practiced by his teacher, while Shillong opened a separate practice range. Then Zero began to experiment with various moves. Test the lethality of sword chi. The target of the experiment is the ironwood pillars around. These pillars are inserted into the ground one by one. They are 2 meters long, and each has a different diameter, some a few centimeters, and some 10 or 20 centimeters. He started the test when he was 10 meters away from the ironwood pillar. In the state of the Dragonborn, his full-strength sword and the sword aura that he slashed out have little effect on Taimu. He probably only added a few millimeters deep. A slash of this level would be effective on the battlefield. Bullying under the leather armor and cloth armor professions is of no use to the plate armor fighters. No wonder it's tasteless. After he moved his mind and thought of many fancy moves, he is different from ordinary warriors. Although he doesn't know how to use them, he is still proficient in magic. Whether it is arcane or elemental spells, his accomplishments are not low. This has a strong operating space. He merged his sword chi slash with the wind blade spell to form a wind blade slash, so that the sword chi's lethality became very strong. Cut on the ironwood pole 10 meters away, it can make a 2-3 cm hole. This level of damage is enough to cut the plate armor class and inflict fatal damage. This wind blade slash seemed to be a root cause, after which Zero's brain opened up and he tried various slashes. For example, flame slash and freezing slash are 2 slashes. In terms of slashing damage alone, they are not even as good as ordinary sword slashing, but with flame and freezing damage, it is still very interesting. Well, it's very fancy. Then Zero developed a slash that combined his 3 powers. For example, gravity slash. At the moment when the sword is slashed, gravity is applied to the sword, so that the power of the sword slash out of the sword is much greater than before. And attach a wind blade to it, powerful enough to cut off a piece of ironwood that is 7 or 8 centimeters thick. These moves are all fancy moves. They are tasteless. However, as a giant dragon, Shillong's energy in his body is more versatile. Like high-level monsters, the energy can be freely transformed into magic power and battle energy. When he uses war energy, the lethal force of gravity sword energy is enough to cut a 15 centimeters ironwood pillar. Zero was enjoying it, although in a strict sense, the swordsmanship and spells he learned were quite tasteless. Is not helpful to his own combat power. Learning spells is because they want a foundation for spells and use this knowledge to create a magic version of the game console. Practicing swordsmanship can only slightly increase the combat power in the Dragonborn form. When encountering a real battle against a strong enemy, you still have to change back to the main body. The main source of combat power at this time is naturally its own super fast speed, nuclear calming breath, and the original power of the 3 forces. Practicing until noon, Zero heard the sound of someone knocking outside the door. Because he opened this practice range alone, people outside cannot enter without the consent of the people inside. Silum walked to the door, opened the door, and looked outside the door. Standing there was the guy Armin. His originally handsome face is actually a little bruised. Obviously the teacher has learned enough. He gently covered his face and said, "It's lunchtime. Let's go, Shillong. Let's go to the cafeteria for dinner. It is said that the food here is pretty good." Eating, Xylem frowned unconsciously. Must be very expensive. Pack a driving range and get a silver coin a day. The food in this place is unreasonably cheap. And the purpose of this kid Armin is absolutely impure. He must want to spend money on Lao Tzu's meal. Thing. I am also a local tyrant with a value of tens of thousands of gold coins. Actually thinking about Singfan all day long. Don't you feel ashamed? I can do whatever you want. Dog day. Raising you so much for nothing. I gave you so much money. I don't know how to honor your elder brother and want to eat my food all day long. Go and eat by yourself. I won't go. Xylem rebuffed. What? You don't even eat rice? Human food is so great. Armin was a little surprised. Does this guy see my purpose? It doesn't matter whether it tastes good or not, and my demand for food is relatively low. Just a little bit. Shillong finished speaking, took out a few hard brown bread directly from the space ring, and then stuffed it into his mouth. The fangs that opened his mouth full clicked like he was chewing hardwood and swallowed a piece of brown bread in twos. Would you like to eat it? Although it doesn't taste very good, Xylem smiled and handed another piece of brown bread to Armin. Fuck me. You are vicious. Eat all the black bread. Refuse to invite me to dinner. You eat slowly. I went to the cafeteria to eat by myself. Armin rejected Shillong's kindness expressionlessly and then left. Sample. Can I still see what you mean? Want to eat rice? No way. Zero smiled in his heart, picked up a piece of black bread and gnawed up, and then entered the door to continue practicing. All of these were seen by a student dozens of meters away. He is also on a temporary squad and was shocked when he saw Zero's strength yesterday. At the same time, there is some resentment in my heart. This Dragonborn, just have a good parent. Talent is so strong. If I exchange identities with him, I can do everything he does. Just got a good fetus. But the scene he saw today has shaken his view of Shillong. This dragon descendant, he is different from everyone else. He is a genius who really loves swordsmanship. Many stories appeared in this student's mind in an instant wuxia world that online to make up the story of Shillong. This is a dragon descendant with a hard life, although born with supernatural power. But I don't know how to use swordsmanship, so I can only use the money I earn from my hard work to sign up and learn. In order to learn high-strength skills, all the money is spent on tuition. Use it for practice. Can't bear to buy some delicious. Look at him, clearly strong, but eating black bread. How hard and simple is this? How gritty is this? What is steel will? Is simply a model of my generation. His nobility makes me ashamed. I was born into a rich family arbitrarily, but my effort was not as good as 1/10 of the opponent's. Ashamed. Modern? Caesar announced. You will be my goal in the future. I must use the same effort to learn from you. That's it. After lunch, cancel the lunch break. This 1.5 hours, I want to continue practicing. Run 5 laps in the playground. Then chop the iron steak 100 times. Then 100 leapfrogs. After school, I will look for Peter. Practice against him. That's it. Modern? Caesar nodded secretly and left with a resolute face. General Sword Academy, because it is divided into 3 different groups. Star Group, Month Group, and Day Group, their economic strength is very different. So the canteen is also divided into 3 floors. The first floor is the dining place of Star Group Academy. The meals offered here are of good quality and low price. There is no omnivorous black bread. The last thing is sweet white bread, a white bread sold for 5 copper coins. Here only 2 copper coins. Complete cost price. Part 1. Chapter 93, Everything, Simple Meat, Sausages and other items are cost priced, and the price is between a few dozen copper coins. The food on the second floor is much more exquisite, and there are a lot of monster meat. These meats can provide more nutrients for practicing swordsmanship, and the price is naturally a lot more expensive. The third floor is the place where the local tyrants of the Japanese group go, and the grade is naturally extremely high. The food provided in is enjoyed by the nobles, which is comparable to the most upscale noble restaurants outside. The minimum amount of each food is silver coins. The more expensive ones are all gold coins. Even ordinary day group students don't dare to eat on the third floor every day. At this time, Armin, under the introduction of his classmates, came to the second floor to dine. Because the family conditions of the temporary students are pretty good, most of them dine on the second floor. Although the lunch on the second floor is a lot more refined, it is still a big pot of food. A group of people need to queue for dinner. Armin lined up for a while before it was his turn to order. There were still many kinds of dishes. Pigs, ducks, cows, lambs, and other meats are available, as well as a few monster meats of not low level. He ordered 1 portion according to the appetite of 5 people. The whole iron pan used to put food was full. It cost more than 1 gold, which was quite expensive. With the iron basin in his right hand, Armin went back to find a place to eat. At this time, a group of students came towards Armin. The student led by wore a decent blue school uniform with blonde hair. Not handsome in appearance, and a square face, surrounded by 3 or 4 people, all centered on this student. Their faces have obvious pleasing smiles, and the man in the middle, with a full face of arrogance, wants to be a genius among the students. This group of people talked and laughed and moved towards Armin's direction. The two quickly approached. One of the students suddenly saw Armin's iron pan full of food and was a little surprised. Wow, this guy is too good to eat too. How many people are there? Altogether, this is for one person to eat. Is it? It's almost like a rice bucket. Several other people looked at Armin when they heard this. One of them smiled and said, "You see, he is still an elf. This is too edible. The elf I know eats very few and prefers fruit. Kind of food. Isn't this a fake elf? Look at his clothes." At first glance, they are temporary students. These guys have nothing but money. It is a waste to order so many good things at once. A group of people pointed at Armin, which made his mood a bit bad. "Are you guys here looking for trouble?" Armin's expression turned gloomy. As he said, he put his left hand into the iron basin, took out a piece of meat, put it in his mouth, and ate it. The eyes are on those who are watching the talking. "Huh? How do you talk? Are we wrong?" A student said. "Yes. We didn't scold you again. What kind of attitude do you elves have? This is the king's city of Starlane. Not in the forest of your elves," a student warned. "Get out of here. I don't have time to spend with you here." The man in the middle also spoke. He frowned and looked at Armin very upset. Roadmaster is used to it, and he really hasn't adapted to anyone who dares to talk back to him, especially the scum of temporary students. "You bastards, you provoke me, but you still want me to make way for you? Impossible. Is there no way next to me? You want me to give way?" Armin was angry, grabbed the food in the iron pan, and stuffed it frantically. "Don't let it, right?" A student muttered to himself, and then took a step, walked in front of Armin, and pushed his body forward. He sees Armin is small, and wants to use his size advantage to squeeze him away. But he walked a few steps and found that the other party was not moving. This makes him a little uncomfortable. He is learning one-handed swords in the academy, mainly focusing on agility, and strength is not his strong point. Is also relatively slim, only 1.7 meters tall. Seeing that Armin couldn't squeeze, the man's face was a little red. 1.7 meters tall? Can't squeeze 1.6 meters? What a shame. And the opponent is still an elf who is not good at power. Armin just swallowed a mouthful of meat at this time, looked at each other contemptuously, and pushed his chest directly to the ground, laughed, and said, "Haha, you were too weak. You fell down before I tried hard. You." The student fell to the ground, his complexion even redder. Pointing at Armin, he didn't know what to say. The students around obviously noticed the unexpected situation here. Some people walked directly to the front, while others looked at it from a distance. This is the second floor. Most of the people who dine are the nobles in small places. They looked at the situation here with a sneer. At this time, the square-faced man among the students was not looking good. He said with a calm face, "You spirit, get out of me quickly. I don't need to investigate your fault." Armin glanced at each other disdainfully when he heard the words. Are these people really sick? It is obviously their fault. Why did it seem to be my fault? Are human beings so domineering? He didn't understand, so he took 2 more bites of meat. "Do you know who I am?" The Fong face on the other side suddenly said this. "I don't know." Armin replied, "I am Tom Morris." The square-faced man suddenly turned straight and said, "Tom Morris. That's right. I don't know. Are you famous?" Armin asked. "My brother is William Morris." Tom Morris's cheek twitched slightly. Wuxia world. The online still don't know. William Morris, the strongest genius in the academy with legendary resources. He is my brother. Tom was furious. What does that have to do with you? He is my brother. Your brother is your brother, not you. You. Tom furiously. He is my brother. We are brothers. His glory is my glory. Oh, the strongest genius in the academy? A legendary asset? It feels like that. When I grow up, it must be a legend, and it is the kind that is several times stronger than your brother. Armin casually said, as the silver dragon second only to the golden dragon in the metal dragon family. What he said is true. As long as they live to old or extremely old age, how difficult is it to advance legendary dragon? For the dragon, the legend is not something to show off. I want to talk about brother. My brother Xylem is also a dragon. Do you see me showing off? All the fuss. This elf is too arrogant. How dare to look down on William, who has legendary resources? Look at his tone. Even the legend itself is not even considered. Are all the elves so arrogant now? A few students could not believe their ears. Legendary powerhouse. There are only single-digit invincibles in the kingdom. Even a strong man who must be respected by his majesty, the elf in front of him. Why do you look down on it? Fuck, asshole, I want to fight you. Tom was also mad. He feels that his elder brother has received the biggest insult in his life. Because of this, he roared very loudly, and the students around were all attracted. Duel? It seems interesting. These local nobles all showed interest in their faces. Part 1. Chapter 94 Duel. Come on, I'm still afraid that you won't succeed. Will Armin be afraid of this little human? That's impossible. Very good. Let's go to the nearby driving range number 3 to compete. Tom said he wanted to leave here. This duel does not contain any benefits. It is just a simple duel. However, the result of the duel will definitely be broadcast in the mouth of the students, and the loser will generally suffer mental torture. This mainly comes from the ridicule of others and the dwarfing of the self in thought. There is no loser. After a duel fails, he can still show up in front of the winner. They met the victor again, fearing that they would take a detour. Hearing what the other party said, Armin said, "Wait, I haven't eaten yet. Are you guys trying to win when I'm hungry?" Huh. When he stopped, Tom looked at Armin with an ugly expression. "Then eat your meal. Don't think about being able to escape. I want to teach you a lesson and let you know the gap between temporary students and formal students." Gap. Armin's complexion is not good anymore. He seems to remember the scene of being defeated by Peter before and beaten by the teacher again. As a giant dragon, he is a little ashamed of being unable to beat humans. Gritted his teeth, Armin grunted. "You wait. This time I will want you ignorant humans to know how Armin is." His eyes were fixed on Tom, but his hands kept on, grabbing the food in the basin and stuffing his mouth. The way of eating is not too heroic. I looked at the aristocratic students next to me for a moment. This seems a bit different from the elves in their impression. Quietly watched Armin eat for more than 20 minutes before he finished the food. He wiped the corners of his mouth, patted his stomach and said, "Yes, 30% full. You can go." Goo. Just then, a student next to Tom suddenly screamed. A group of people looked at him, and he blushed a little and said, "I trained too hard before. I was a little hungry. Or, wait for you to finish it too. Are we trying?" Armin said indifferently. "No need." Tom grumbled to the student's stomach. "You eat first. You don't need to follow me for now." Then he said to Armin again, "Come on. I can't wait to teach you a good elf who knows nothing." "Well then." Armin agreed. A group of people got out of the restaurant, came to the first floor, and headed for a nearby dojo. Was followed by less than 20 students. This attracted the students below, and no matter what the reason, I followed them first, and then a group of people followed to the dojo. Because of lunchtime, there are no people in practice 3 at this time. A group of people watching the play voluntarily gave up their position to the protagonist and watched. Armin and Tom came to the center, and each took their weapons from the weapon racks. Armin's ironwood sword, Tom's ironwood one-handed sword. Tom glanced at Armin, who was holding the ironwood sword, and sneered. "Elves who are only 1.6 meters tall actually use the sword? Are you trying to laugh at me? So that you can win this competition? How can there be such an arrogant, and stupid guy in the natural elves? Hey, this bastard, if you provoke me, you dare to scold me. I want to convince you today. I'm not worthy of being a dragon. Just go to be a dragon beast." With a little force in his hand, Armin stared at the other side firmly. In the end, the two sides were in a tacit understanding. When one side acted first, he also acted accordingly. At the moment of approaching the opponent, Armin's great sword slashed at the enemy indefinitely. Tom looked at the big sword that was cut at him. Although he looked down on him, he still didn't relax. Because his strength among the students belongs to the bottom rank. Has only level 7 strength. If this kind of strength is slightly relaxed, there is a real possibility of being turned back by the powerful temporary students. One-handed sword wave. Tom smashed Armin's offensive at a very fast speed, and the two quickly fought together. After being abused by a 15th level swordsman, Armin improved quickly. This is mainly because he has a good foundation, and his brain responds faster than ordinary people. Now he is no weaker than Peter. At the time, Peter was shocked. Forget it if the Dragonborn talent is good. Is Mao and elf talent so good? Is there any reason? Is there a king? Compare the two. When the difference in strength is not obvious, it is necessary to tell the victory or defeat outside the 70 or 80 rounds, and then both of them will consume almost the same strength. Fighting for more than 10 rounds, Armin gradually fell into a disadvantage. This reassures the previous flattering group a little bit. After all, if the challenger loses, it would be too shameful. This will make the flattering group who has been following Tom feel shame. Although it's shameless to flatter people all day long, they don't want Tom to lose. This guy's eldest brother, William, is what they want to please. It is ridiculous to say, in other places students who are also considered geniuses enter the General Sword Academy, but become flattering brothers. This is all realistic persecution. They, who were originally proud and confident, didn't realize how small they were until they reached the center of the entire kingdom. The gap between genius and genius is bigger than the gap between ordinary genius and mortal. Is even more desperate. Back to the fight, Wuxia Whirl, online the discerning student, looking at the two fighting people, guessed that after another 30 or 40 rounds, Tom will definitely take the elf. Tom in the battle can also see it naturally, with a sneer at the corner of his mouth, as if he has seen his opponent defeated by him, ashamed after being humiliated. Armin also felt something was wrong. This time the competition absolutely cannot lose. He can't afford to lose this person. Thinking like this in his heart, there was a white mist all over his body. With a mouth open, a puck will be sprayed at the opponent. Watching the oncoming puck, Tom was shocked. He hurriedly rolled around with a donkey, avoided the big sword and the hockey puck, and took a few steps back. Exclaimed, "Asshole! Cheating! Use blood spells!" Tom's vision is not bad, and those who can enter the general sword student are not mediocre, and their vision is not low. Naturally know about blood spells. The so-called bloodline spell is an ability that inherits the bloodline of a certain extraordinary existence among parents, and thus extends it. Generally, those who possess this ability are the kind of mixed blood, such as dragon descendants, such as humans with the blood of giants. Of course, there are purebred humans, but there must be a legendary powerhouse in the parents' generation. Legendary powerhouses can be regarded as the evolution of ordinary human beings, and their life level has been improved. They will generally have a legendary ability. This kind of ability is so strange that it is inscribed in the blood, enough to be passed on to future generations. However, after the descendants inherit, the power will be greatly reduced and even disappear directly after a few generations. Alman, this elf, obviously only one of his parents is an elf, and there is another one who does not know what it is. Part 1. Chapter 95. Tom doesn't think there are legends among Armin's parents. The existence of bloodline spells is quite enviable, because it can provide the owner with decent combat power, at least among the people who watched the battle. Many people showed admiration for the elf, Armin. Ha! Armin laughed wildly, and continued to launch a rainstorm attack on Tom, while he said, "You never said that blood spells are not allowed? Talk about cheating." After saying this, his mouth was like a machine gun, opening and closing. Hockey pucks rushed to Tom without money, and made Tom into a panic. After only a few rounds, Tom's right shoulder was hit by an ice hockey puck, covering it with a layer of frost. The situation is getting worse for him. Tom wants to change the situation, but he can't do it. Now it's his full power. When he was hit by the ice hockey, his movements became a lot slower, and after a few more moves, his left leg was also hit by the ice hockey. The battle situation has gotten worse. Armin made a fierce attack on Tom. After a dozen moves, he finally put the big sword on the opponent's neck. At this time, he was full of pride and said, "Challenge me? How could I thought you were?" The result was nothing but that. "You." Tom looked at the villain on the other's face, and he felt aggrieved in his heart. "Don't be too arrogant in the future. Tell me to give way? Can you not walk without legs?" "Ha!" At the end, Armin laughed mockingly. "Asshole! Rely on blood to win. You can't win." Tom gritted his teeth. "Ha!" The wailing of the defeated dog. Armin was unmoved. Now in front of so many people, "You have lost. What's the point of saying this?" Tom turned his head and looked to the side. At this moment, there were at least 30 or 50 people gathered here. From Tom's perspective, he felt that these people's eyes were a little dazzling when they saw him. These guys must be laughing at him. Laughed at him as William's younger brother only has this ability. Laughed at him for being unworthy of William's younger brother. His heart is extremely uncomfortable. His head gradually lowered. He knew that as a loser, no matter how sophisticated he was just a loser. What happened here? A voice suddenly came out. Is very clear in this noisy place. Armin and Tom could not help turning their heads to look in the direction of the sound. Is a young man who also wears student costumes. This young man is tall, about 1.5 meters tall, with long blonde hair with a ponytail, and looks a little good. Looking carefully, there is something similar between the eyebrows and Tom. His chest is straight, and he looks like a confident person. After he appeared, he took a look at the two people in the field, then walked to Tom and observed the other person's expressions. "I heard that you were fighting with an elf? It seems that you lost? What's the matter?" "Big brother, I'm sorry. I'm ashamed of you." Tom lowered his head and looked lonely. "You didn't lose my face. What you lose is your own face." William said, "Let's talk about it. Why do you have to fight each other?" The elf said something that made me uncomfortable. He said that there is nothing great about your eldest brother, and there is nothing great about a legend. Huh? When William heard this, he raised his eyebrows and looked at Armin, who was still smug in surprise. "What my brother said is true," William asked Alman. "Yeah. Is there anything great about the legend?" "I feel like that," Armin said indifferently. The conversation between the two was heard by the people at the scene. Everyone's complexion is unsightly, including those who gloated at Tom's loss. Legend is sacred and powerful in the eyes of all students. Every student will respect the legend from the heart. But now the legend they respect is worthless in the mouth of this elf boy. How does this make it? These guys quickly pointed to Armin. It's like a bunch of mad dogs robbed of food. Does anyone know this elf? Looks young. You speak so arrogantly. Temporary waste student. Who knows this kind of guy? Temporary students despise the legend. This is the first time I heard that this wizard is a bit interesting. Honestly, you say that I am nothing great, it doesn't matter, but you can't insult the legend. My strength is not as good as 1% of the true legend. Do you dare to accept my challenge? William looked serious and put aside his waist. The ironwood one-handed sword. The tip of the sword pointed directly at Armin. Okay, my brother was defeated. Next is my brother's turn. Yes. Then I will continue to beat you. I will call your dad too. Then your grandpa, your family. I will fight all by myself again. Armin said. In his opinion, William is just a student, and the difference between his strength and Tom should not be too great. He can defeat any student by using blood spells. Very good. William frowned and said, this fairy's mouth is really poisonous. But as one of the leading figures in the academy, he still pays much attention to his own image. So he should pay attention to this kind of person and drop the price. He let Tom go down, then walked 6 meters away from Armin, with his left hand on his back, and his right hand holding a sword at Armin. Looks unbelievably handsome. Many onlookers are a little fascinated by the women. Come on, attack. I'll let you 3 moves. William looked indifferent. Let me do 3 tricks? Are you arrogant? Armin sneered, without being polite, rushing to the opponent and raising the big sword in his hand. It was a heavy cut, but this heavy cut was just cut out. In an instant, it became a left diagonal cut. The cut is fast, and the change is also fast. It was originally Armin's slash that wanted to confuse his opponent, but William instantly saw through Armin's thoughts and jumped back gently to avoid the slash. The first trick, flutter. Armin opened his mouth, and Yu read www.youcanshoot.com with a flick of his head, and it was a string of hockey pucks spilling on the opponent. William's one-handed sword flicked all the pucks instantly. The second trick, human, a little bit of strength. Armin can also be regarded as seeing the opponent's strength clearly, knowing that he may not be able to win the opponent in a short time. Instantly changed his strategy. He opened his mouth again, and a white mist swayed straight ahead. The white mist covers a huge area, and it is displayed in a closed space like the dojo, which is not particularly large. William couldn't dodge at all, and was instantly enveloped in white mist. He felt that his hands and feet were slightly cold, and he was a bit insensitive. Then he saw Armin rush into the white mist and cut at him again. The third trick, it's time for me to fight back. William's expression was still flat, and the moment Armin slashed at him, he waved his right arm. Snapped. Ayo! Armin cried out in pain, and couldn't help but loosen his hands. The big sword fell to the ground, and then his neck felt cold. When he recovered, the opponent's one-handed sword was already on his neck. How? This is what you look down on, only 1% of the strength of a legendary swordsman. William said. The surrounding students gave William's victory the applause that Armin never had before. Some students still said, it is indeed one of the strongest geniuses with legendary resources among the students. You won beautifully. Have you seen it? Elf, this is the gap between you and the student genius. You can beat you with 1 move. Do you dare to underestimate the legend? As expected, big brother. Always so perfect. So good. Tom clenched his fists as he looked below. This is the big brother he longs for. Perfect. Powerful. Beautiful. Elegant. Part 1. Chapter 96. Armin took a breath, was annoyed in his heart, and looked at William with a bad look. This kid is very strong. Is definitely not much worse than the coach who abused him in the morning. Bastard. A human student actually has such strength? Underestimate them? And what do the humans around you mean? A bunch of bunts. Think how powerful the legend is. What is wrong with what I said? Armin was upset, but he didn't admit defeat. That's it. Your brother lost to me and let you play. It's not fair. I have brothers too. If you can defeat him, then I lose. There is nothing to say. Yes, William said lightly, confident in himself. Who is only 18 years old this year. He is already a master swordsman at level 12 and close to level 13. The teachers in the school said that when he was 30 years old, he had the hope of advancing to the legend. The self-confidence and pride that a genius should have. He also has. Hey, that's great. You wait. I'll call my brother now. Armin laughed. What level is his brother Shillong? He does not know. But yesterday, I hanged up the coach and beat it. To deal with this kid, William, it doesn't need to be beaten by foot. After speaking, Armin walked out. William followed closely, and a group of people followed. Armin saw the movement behind him, turned his head to look at William, and said, What are you doing? Follow you. Afraid I ran away? Armin also reacted at this time. Damn human. How dare to despise me? William did not answer, but looked at Armin quietly. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and Armin ignored the opponent, and a group of people came to the training ground of Shillong. Armin bumped against the door. Asshole. Shillong. Your brother. I was bullied. Come out and help me get revenge. A few seconds later, the door was opened with a creak. The demon Dragonborn, who is only 1.5 meters tall, appeared in front of everyone. He looked at all the people present and said a little surprised, "You have been bullied by so many people? Did you do something damaging? Did you peek at the female practitioner to take a bath or something? Who would peek at human women taking baths? Bastard. I was beaten by them," Armin said loudly. "Hit? Didn't you see it? Don't you have no injuries at all?" Zero said. "I'm telling you. Today, Do you understand?" Armin said the matter exactly, looking angry. He doesn't tell lies about meaninglessness. So what he said is basically the truth of the matter. After Shillong listened, he already understood the matter. As far as the cause is concerned, Armin is not wrong. The fault is Tom, but Armin shouldn't reveal the arrogance that looks down on human legends from the inside out. After all, human legends are very rare. Every legend has a large number of fans. These fans yearn for and admire their idols. Naturally, ordinary people are not allowed to insult them. And Armin has no experience in human society. Say what, it belongs to Taihanhan, this is a problem. It's not good for who is right and who is wrong in this matter, but Shillong is definitely going to help Armin. He is a brother after all. Didn't do anything to hurt the gods and reason. It would make no sense if you didn't help. Go straight in, let's talk together. Asylum glanced at William and walked in. William was not polite and walked in directly. To be honest, an elf and a dragonborn are brothers, which really surprised him a little bit. There is only one possibility for this result. The mother of the two is an elf, and the father is a dragon. And this dragon should be a black dragon. This is very interesting. William and the more knowledgeable people present have already made up a lot of the birth of these two guys. An evil black dragon raped an elf during estrus, thus giving birth to these two guys. As for, the mother is the black dragon and the father is the elf? This is impossible, because the bloodline of a true dragon is extremely powerful. If the mother is a true dragon, then it doesn't matter what the parent body is, the dragon descendants will be born. Only when the mother is of other races can non-dragon descendants be born. This is mainly because, at the birth of a life, the maternal gene received far exceeds that of the father, who only provides a pool of liquid. These two guys are pitiful. William followed behind Shillong, feeling a little unbearable. "Forget the duel. Let's take it as it is today." "How can it work?" Armin jumped first. "You bastards. I just wanted to run away after the bullying. Don't even think about it. I want my brother to teach you a lesson." After Armin said these words, the students behind William were immediately unhappy. I saw them saying, "You spirit, you really don't know the heart. Do you think your brother can really defeat one of our students' strongest students? William, who has the legendary talent? I think you haven't woken up. Can you win? You'll know after you fight." Armin glanced at the opponent disdainfully. "Humph, even the legendary William has never heard of it. Two soil buns." The other party said in an air. "Okay, since you insist on continuing, come on." William nodded, preventing the two from continuing to argue. Shillong heard the words, glanced at the onlookers behind him, and said, "Do you know who I am?" "Huh? How do we know who your Dragonborn is? Isn't it a temporary student?" Some student mocked. "No one knows who I am?" Shillong asked again, "Wuxia World, that online," but his eyes were fixed on a temporary student. "As a formal student of General Sword, how can we possibly know you as a temporary student? Maybe you are somewhat famous among temporary students. But temporary is temporary. Please do not compare with formal." "Okay, I see," Asylum replied, and then continued to walk in. He just saw a temporary student he met yesterday. The student was in the crowd and said nothing. He was faintly hostile by the formal students around him, and was incompatible with them. Zero thought that after yesterday's events, he should be quite famous, not to mention that formal students knew him, but the temporary students who met must have remembered him, right? But seeing the temporary student just now, Zero knew the answer. This guy didn't know him, but he wouldn't tell these proud formal students how strong Zero was. Is obviously to see the other party making a fool of yourself. Both sides came to the court spontaneously. William's left hand was behind his back, and his right hand held a one-handed sword. He pointed straight at Shillong and said, "Come on, I will let you 3 moves." Shillong frowned. "This kid is pretending. Hold the grass. When I grow up so big, I hate that others pretend to be in front of me. Since birth, only me. How can someone pretend to be? Does he think he is the protagonist in a novel story? What are you? Underestimate me?" Asylum asked. "No, this is just a fact. I have 3 tricks for you, and it is me who wins. Otherwise, I am afraid that as soon as I make a move, the test will be over. That's not good. It's not fair to you." William looked indifferently, as if he was telling the truth. Although it seems to want to let the opponent, but arrogant cannot bear it. Part 1. Chapter 97. Good boy. This is pretending. Originally wanted to save you some face. It looks like it's too much to stay. Your face. I am settled today. Zero thought this in his heart, but his face was peaceful, smiled lightly, then threw the two-handed sword on the ground. There was a soft voice, but it attracted everyone's attention. What is this demon descendant doing? I'm afraid that I will surrender? You know you are not your opponent. Don't surrender early. It's too late to surrender now. A group of students whispered on the side. Are you not going to try it? That's fine, William said with a slight shock. No, you misunderstood. Silem smiled. To apply what you just said, I just don't think there is a need to use a sword. Anyway, the result is doomed, and I must win. Come on, I'll let you make 10 moves first. Otherwise, as soon as I shoot, the competition will end. It would be too boring. William's eyes widened instantly. Faint redness. This is angry. Someone dared to talk to him in such words. Who is he? Known as a genius swordsman with legendary assets. The strongest genius in the academy. Swordsman who even the teachers of the academy have to face with caution. Is so underestimated by a temporary student. Without weapons? Who does he think he is? You must know that two swordsmen compete, and the quality of their weapons can determine a victory or defeat to a great extent. Fight at the same level, and those with weapons can definitely hang and beat those without weapons. When you have a weapon in your hand, you have the initiative to attack. If you don't have a weapon, except passively evade, it is absolutely difficult to counterattack. Want to take it empty-handed? The strength is not worse than 4 or 5 levels. Don't even think about it. William was caught by Shillong's own atmosphere. This is an arrogant man than him. The crowd on the side was naturally furious. Underestimate the genius of their college. Who do you really think you are? Legendary swordsman? A group of people could no longer restrain themselves, and the one who pointed at Shillong was a curse. You Dragonborn, how dare you be so arrogant? William, you step back. Let me teach him a lesson. I should teach him. I must make him kneel and beg for mercy. I want him to confess for what he just said. These students are really angry. You look down on William and say that William is weak. Doesn't that mean they are weaker? Is it more wasteful? After all, William is the genius among them. Which student does not live in his shadow? Shut up, Silem shouted while looking at these onlookers. Although I understand why these people are angry, this does not mean that Shillong will allow this group to scold him. Has been living in the human world for a while, and he has a deep understanding of the weakness of human beings. Is just a group of ants weak enough to be trampled to death by him accidentally. Made him only cautiously and carefully avoid the fragile life that can survive. Being able to treat him normally is already a gift from God to them. This group of guys are still not satisfied. In this life, as a dragon, he is extremely proud in his heart. He usually treats ordinary people with politeness. Shillong feels that this is already a person in his previous life, and he has the greatest respect for them. Why are they still not satisfied? The stream of golden particles in the eye sockets is rioting. The air in the whole room sank. The brightness of the room is flickering and dimming. Everyone, including Armin, breathed, and all the words disappeared from their ears. Is only a clear and incomparable heartbeat. The heartbeat sound was so loud, as if it was about to jump out of the chest. Everyone's complexion flushed red, and the sweat on their foreheads tickled down. They covered their chests as if they wanted to slow down their heartbeat, but it didn't help. The eyes are full of surprise. Who as if a wisp of breeze was blowing. This kind of anomaly only lasted for a few seconds before disappearing. As if everything just now was an illusion, but the illusion was so clear and terrifying. A group of students looked at each other, not knowing what happened just now, but they wanted to come to have something to do with the demon dragon descendants in front of them, which made them bow their heads in shock and dare not speak anymore. These students are shocked. Zero turned his head and didn't pay attention. It was just a warning just now. This group of fighters, mostly between the 7th and 9th levels, couldn't bear his dragon power at all, including Armin, who was in the form of an elven, were taken aback. This guy was staring at him fiercely. Seems to be saying, why is he even implicated? There is no way. Longwei's aura is a ranged type and cannot be controlled. Can't distinguish between friend and foe. Faced William again. This guy is much better than those onlookers. It's just that his face is flushed and there is a little sweat on his forehead. But he is very different from before. That is the attitude towards Shillong. His complexion became extremely cautious. Was very large before, and the left hand that was behind him was also placed in front, and both hands tightly held the sword in his hand. Although he didn't know what happened just now, he also thought it had something to do with the demon dragonborn in front of him. This dragonborn may be very strong. Is much stronger than I thought. Must go all out. Is like facing the teacher. Please advise. William said with a serious expression. Come on, Zero said. Brush. No nonsense. Only in the blink of an eye, William disappeared in place and appeared in front of Shillong. The tip of the sword turned into a bit of cold light. and it pierced Shillong's head. Seeing that the slightly rounded sword head of the ironwood sword was getting closer and closer, until it was only a few centimeters from the head, Shillong was still motionless, but the wings behind him moved. Slapped William's ironwood sword suddenly. Snapped. A huge force slammed on the sword, and William felt like he was hit by a huge violent pig. His body tilted slightly and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, he used his feet in time to stop the side fall. Before he could think about it, he instinctively changed his move, and the sword in his hand slashed toward Shillong's waist. Zero's right hand leaned forward, and when the opponent was about to cut him, he instantly pinched the sword. William wanted to move, but found that he could not move anyway. The whole sword seemed to be fused with a piece of overweight metal, and it couldn't be shaken at all. William looked at Shillong in horror. He knew that the gap between himself and the opponent was too great. If you want to achieve this level, the opponent's strength is definitely more than 10 times that of his own. Just when he wanted to open his mouth and confess his defeat, the demon dragon descendant in front of him suddenly released the ironwood sword and said, "Come on, go on, hard. I am Phoenix. You are welcome." William gritted his teeth, wrapped his sword aura, and turned into a violent swordsman. The sword in his hand danced into an afterimage. The sound of jingle bells keeps coming out. All his sword moves Wuxia World .online are blocked by Shillong's long nails. As a Dragonborn, his nails are about 1 centimeter long, but it's a 1 centimeter long fingernail. Completely defended William's sword moves. This is a huge blow to William. His complexion was miserable, sweat was constantly slipping from his forehead, and the attack had been ineffective. He can only inject all his fighting energy into the sword. The next moment, in the eyes of all the students, the one-handed sword is divided into 3. Seems to have 3 swords. A sword stabs Zero's head, a sword stabs his throat, a sword stabs his body. Appeared. It is William's teacher, the legendary sword master, the sword skills of Troy Pham. Splitting the lightsaber. The onlookers were excited. Seeing that the sword was getting closer and closer to the opponent, William didn't feel the slightest joy in his heart. Even with the strongest stunt, he didn't think he could beat the opponent. The gap between the two sides is too big, but he doesn't want to lose too ugly. Shillong, who was on the opposite side, opened his mouth at this time, revealing the sharp teeth inside. William could see clearly, and then the other party gave him a light breath. Boom! Part 2. An immense force suddenly descended on him. His whole person was violently knocked out by this force. The next moment, his whole person has been embedded on the wall 10 meters behind. The sword in his hand has long been out of his palm. Hungry, William groaned in pain. What happened just now? The opponent just took a breath and defeated him? This is impossible. Although he was discouraged, he did not lose his mind. Part 1. Chapter 98. Ahem. William coughed in pain. The whole scene is silent. All the students were dumbfounded. It was a long time before someone shivered and said, "Just now I'm wrong, right? Can someone really blow a master swordsman with one breath? I think there is a problem with my eyes. This must be illusion. Yes, it is illusion. Haha, yes. It's an illusion. What a clever illusion. It can be tricked by so many of us. This guy is amazing." A group of students were discussing intensely, and they didn't want to believe that the scene before them was real. "Ha! You humans are really so funny. Can't even tell the truth from the illusion? Or are you unable to accept this reality and start to deceive yourself?" Armin looked at the ridiculous appearance of these people and couldn't help but mock. A group of students were silent. What Armin said was right. They didn't want to believe it was true. How could someone defeat a level 12 professional with just one breath? This is impossible. All students feel that their common sense has been challenged. This is as ridiculous as telling someone that 1 + 1 = 8. This must be fake. That Dragonborn. The magic scroll must have been used just now. Before we saw it, a student shouted. That's right. The magic scroll must be used. Although they all knew that William was not Shillong's opponent after the previous competition, the final result was amazing. Obviously unacceptable. This group of people want to find out the problem. The explanation of the magic scroll has been accepted by everyone. In fact, Shillong really couldn't blow a level 12 swordsman directly into the air, especially the Dragonborn state. If it is true, then maybe it can be done. He was in the state of the dragon descendant. While blowing his breath, he launched a repulsive force, which caused a scene that seemed extremely shocking to outsiders. For this group of students, Shillong ignored them and guessed it as they wish anyway. He smiled slightly, looked at William, who was still inlaid on the wall, did not get up, and seemed to be thinking about something. He used his thumb and index finger to compare a distance and said, "It's a pity. It seems that I am stronger. You and I are still a little bit stronger. There are some gaps, but you should not be discouraged. With your strength, you want to be among the human beings. It is also very outstanding." William glanced at Shillong silently, and then said, What was going on just now? Just blow me away with one breath? I think it's impossible. Can you tell me what you did? This is my stunt. I'm afraid I can't tell you. Zero said. I took the liberty to ask this kind of question. William said as he got away from the wall and coughed a few times after standing up. I am not wronged. The gap between us is too big. Yours. The talent is amazing. Tom and I lost this time. In the future, our brothers will detour when they see you. Shillong nodded without saying anything. Armin smiled with his hands on his hips and walked in front of Tom, who was pale. Said softly, Huh? Tom's face twitched slightly. He really didn't expect that his brother, who looked like a god, would lose, and he would lose so thoroughly. The gap between the first two moves has made Tom understand that Shillong's strength is close to legend. He is still so young. He will obviously be able to advance to legend soon. He is still so young. With such a brother, it's no wonder that annoying elf feels that the legend is very common. Maybe their parents are legends? Tom thought so, looked at Armin in front of him, and said, We lost. What do you want? Hey, your brother said just now, you have to detour when you see me. Now I want to go forward. Don't you understand? The smile on Armin's face is very cheap. It is hard to believe that this will appear on the face of an elegant natural elf. Who? Tom took a deep breath, suppressed the urge to slap the opponent, and silently gave way. Hey, very good. Armin took a few steps forward, then turned around and came to Tom again, his eyes beckoning. Tom's eye twitched, and he moved aside again. Ha! I'm walking over. I'm walking back. I'm walking over. I'm walking back. Alman ha laughed, walking back and forth in front of Tom, letting Tom keep giving way. In the end, Tom couldn't stand it. Fly directly out of the dojo. Boy, wanted to give way? There are no doors. Armin looked at the back of the other person with a sigh. A group of students looked at him speechlessly, glanced at each other, but were afraid to make any comments. This guy's brother is too good. Can't afford it. Just when the group of students wanted to disperse, a soldier in light leather armor walked into the dojo. This warrior is about 50 years old, his temples are a little white, and his hair is short like steel needles. Has a rough face and looks very energetic. Blue eyes looked gleaming. Behind him, following the swordsman who taught Shillong and Armin before. The two walked in, and a group of students consciously stepped aside. One by one, the middle-aged men who looked forward showed admiration. Master Principal, the students shouted. The man responded. He is the principal of the General Sword Academy Wuxia World. Online Troy Farm. At the same time, he is also a legendary swordsman. It is William's teacher. Walked to the center at this time. He glanced at William, then at Shillong and the students behind him. Teacher, William saluted Troy at this time. William, so many of you are here. What are you doing? Why are you still injured? Troy asked. Obviously, he didn't come here when he heard that his disciple was competing with others. Teacher, I'm here to discuss with this one. William pointed to Zero. Have you hit? Troy asked. Beat. Did you lose? Yes. Teacher, and it's a complete defeat. William didn't feel ashamed at all. He was open. That's right. Troy didn't blame him because his apprentice lost. After he said this, he turned his head to look at Shillong and said, Are you a student, Shillong? The student who entered the temporary class of Great Sword yesterday. Shillong looked at this guy and said in his heart, Isn't it really a small one? The old one is here? Answered politely, Yes. It's amazing to hear that you defeated Terry. How old are you? You can do this. Troy praised. Terry is a swordsman instructor. Race talent is not worth mentioning. Shillong was very humble. What an enviable talent. It is almost inevitable to enter the legend in the future. I heard that you came here just to learn swordsmanship. Yes, that's great. With excellent talents, you can't waste them, but use them. If you want to learn swordsmanship, come and be my apprentice. Do you like the site? Donate here. Part 1. Chapter 99. Xylem did not speak. The students did not speak either, and William did not speak either. They all know that Shillong is a super genius. Principal Troy is a senior who likes genius very much. Seeing genius, he can't help but want to accept him as a disciple. This is an occupational disease. Shillong looked at the other party's big smile. The proposal is good, but I refuse. What? Troy was taken aback. Since becoming a legendary swordsman, he has accepted more than a dozen apprentices. This is the first time that he has been rejected, and he also accepted several inhuman disciples. The student next to is also shocked. Is there any mistake? Becoming a juggernaut, such a coveted thing, unexpectedly refused. This dragon descendant doesn't put the legend in his eyes at all. Count you hanging? Troy asked why. Because I already have a master, although I don't teach swordsmanship. Shillong replied. I actually don't want to find a human teacher. The coach next to Troy, who temporarily taught for a while yesterday, is not a teacher. As a person who was born in Blue Star in his previous life, he still values the relationship with the teacher more seriously. With this level of relationship, it is not only the master who needs to carefully teach and love the apprentice. There are also apprentices who need to help and respect the master if they can. For ordinary people, it is natural to be able to climb this relationship with a legendary sword master. But Shillong doesn't need it. Is the legend very strong? Compared with the average person, of course it is very strong. But how is it compared with him? That's really not good. So Zero does not need this relationship. He doesn't want to find a human elder to honor him. Does not need the power of this human elder. After all, the two are not the same race anymore. Oh, okay. All right. If you don't want to, forget it. Troy also simply said, since you don't want to, then I'll go. After finishing speaking, he nodded to Shillong and left soon. Modern? Caesar looked at Shillong in the crowd and was moved again. He came with him after seeing Troy, but he never thought of it. Shillong would actually refuse to be the opponent's apprentice. I refuse this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What a great thing. Modern on the other side, and saw the respect for his master. In order not to have one more master, and to share a share of filial piety, he directly rejected the legendary sword master. This is a dragonborn who is extremely respected. His great brilliance is so dazzling. In this real world, everyone has sharpened their heads, and when they want to build relationships with powerful people, he is the only one. Get out of the sill without staining. Only him. Alone. Amazing. Amazing. Can't do it. The blood and emotion in my heart burned. I want to go to the playground and run 10 laps. Only in this way can we become stronger. Get a good result. Repaying far away, the swordsman in hometown. Thinking like this, Modern leaves quickly. Troy's departure caused other students to leave. The last one left was William. He took a deep look at Shillong before closing the door and leaving. Only Shillong and Armin are left in the entire venue. At this time, Armin smiled at Shillong and said, Shillong, you guy, good job. It really didn't shame me. You kid, give me peace. It's only been a few days now. Just cause me trouble. Xylem said, is there anything else? I can continue to practice swords without me. No, I think you can practice. Row. Armin stayed here for about an hour, then went back to continue the class and practice sword. The days after seemed a lot more peaceful, and Armin didn't provoke anyone anymore. Maybe it's because everyone knows that this guy has a very strong brother. On the contrary, many people started to flatter him. Actually, they wanted to curry favor with Zero, but Zero had been practicing in the martial arts field, and they didn't want to have too much intersection with these people. He honestly studied fancy sword moves in the training room. This kind of day has been going on for nearly a month. This day, at night, a bright moon hangs high in the sky. Andre Villa, in Shillong and Armin's room. Two dragons were lying on the bed, preparing to rest. Suddenly, there was a violent wave of magic power, and a portal appeared beside Armin. This portal appears purple and black, is 2 meters high. At the moment it appeared, a voice also came from the portal. Dear metal dragons, please listen to our prayers. We are the natural elves of the blue and white forest, the believers of the goddess of the forest, Elona. Now, we have been violated by the evil green dragon and the black dragon. We need your help. For this, we will certainly offer you a satisfactory reward. With a brush, Armin, who was originally lying on the bed, suddenly straightened up, enthusiastically said to Shillong, Shillong, hurry, the time for justice is here. Let's go and support these natural spirits. Xylem glanced at the portal and was very calm. For this situation, there are records in his dragon heritage. This is a higher dragon summoning spell cast by the opposite nature elves. Requires a wizard with at least 16 level to cast, and the gods they believe in must have a certain relationship with Bahamut, the of good dragons. It's actually very simple to want to have a relationship with the old good dragon of Bahamut. As long as you are in the good camp, you can basically get along well. And Elona is also a deity in the good camp. There is a covenant between the two gods, and the people and believers of both sides will naturally help each other. Of course, it is inevitable to pay a certain reward for inviting help, especially when the dragon is invited, and this kind of reward is generally determined based on the strength of the dragon and the difficulty of completing the task. This is also the reason why Armin is so excited to be able to deliver justice and earn coins. It's perfect. Shillong does not reject this kind of support. Generally speaking, the metal dragon will support it in such a situation. If you can't fight, you only know if you can't fight. If you can't fight, then run. Can't run away? Do not make jokes. Lao Tzu's speed is kilometer per second. Wait, you'd better not go there. Xylem stopped Armin from saying, if it is especially dangerous to face each other, it will be bad if I don't protect you. This, Armin was taken aback for a moment, then said, don't. I'll go with you. Isn't it more dangerous to be separated from you? He thought of the attack he encountered in the previous movie. In the forest near the city, you can encounter attacks. What if the enemy directly kills Andre's house? Isn't Shillong relying on Andre to live? Do not make jokes. Only by Shillong's side is the safest. Armin deeply understands this truth. Obviously, Shillong also thought about this question and finally agreed. The two dragons came to the side of the portal, and when they were about to step in, Yu read www.yunishu. Calm Shillong paused slightly. Don't go in yet. Go in with a shrunken dragon shape. It's safer like this. Because the portal is in the house, and it is too small, it is impossible for him to directly pass by himself. He must be in a change body shape. For the sake of safety, the reduced dragon shape is obviously the strongest. Is at least much stronger than the dragonborn form. After saying this, Shillong's figure was distorted, and he quickly turned into a black gold dragon with a height of 1.5 meters. Don't ask why it's not 2 meters. Because the portal is oval, has become 2 meters, and Ezelyn's body width is absolutely beyond the standard. What you said makes sense. Armin nodded in agreement, and soon became a small silver dragon of the same size. The two dragons quickly got into the portal. Is in the blue and white forest hundreds of kilometers away from Shillong City. The flames of war were filled with smoke, and tracks of trees were knocked to the ground by giant beasts. Pieces of corpses fell on the ground, blood staining the whole land. At least 2,000 to 3,000 corpses fell on the ground, with a mixed race. There are originally beautiful natural elves, orcs with cyan skin and strong builds, short puppies, and a group of lizard people, as well as white horses, demons, ogres, and so on. These creatures lost their lives forever. There are also groups of nature elves sweeping the battlefield. Pack the corpse of the companion. Part 2. Today's attack is just a test. On the edge of the battlefield, a beautiful female elf with blonde hair and a flower crown looked at the battlefield being cleaned with a heavy face, and said to several elves around her. Beside her, there are several elves, 3 women and 1 man. Part 1. Chapter 100. These elves are the leaders of this group of elves. It was the queen who spoke before, Anita Biller. The remaining 3 elves are all elders of the elven race. An 18th level mage, a 19th level marksman, and the male elf, an 18th level druid. As for the queen, it is a legendary goddess. The only one attacking today is the old green dragon. But I guess he is likely to reach a cooperation with the old black dragon in the nearby swamp. What awaits us tomorrow will be an unprecedented challenge. The male elf looked extremely serious. Everyone has seen the situation today. I can only contain the old green dragon at best. If one more black dragon is added, the consequences will be disastrous. The elf queen Anita Biller was a little tired. The armor on her body is a bit messy, and she has obviously experienced a big battle. Old green dragon and old black dragon are both legendary dragons, and their true age has reached the extremely old stage. Through the period of dragon birth and weakness, they are the nightmare of all creatures who enter the legend. The old green dragon and the elves have divided the entire blue and white forest, which has been more than 100 years. Except for the first few fights, the two sides have lived peacefully for 7 to 80 years until tonight. The arsenal where the Dragon Annihilator was stored was detonated by gunpowder. A total of 3 Dragon Annihilators were destroyed. This is a weapon they use for each other's dragons and large monsters. Are weapons made by the ancient ancestors to deal with evil dragons in the world. In the distant past, the dragons ruled the world, and the evil dragons caused harm to the world. All races felt that they were unable to deal with these evil dragons. Their strength is unparalleled. Their speed is as fast as the wind. They can soar in the sky and spit lightning. Flame, very toxic, is the strongest machine of war. In the era when there was no Dragon Annihilator, an adult dragon of level 15 or above was extremely tricky. He can even take advantage of the Sky name to deal with 3 to 5 level 17 professionals. With this extreme difference in combat power, it is also very difficult to kill a dragon that wants to escape. Only those professional teams with incomparable coordination can match it. This is below the legend. Human beings are weak against the dragon. Although the mages now have more knowledge and strength, the team with advanced mages has been able to deal with the dragon better. But this is obviously not enough. To deal with the dragon, only relying on the Dragon Annihilator is the best. It has unparalleled penetration. As long as the hit, it is enough to kill an adult dragon in one blow. Even if it is a legendary dragon, I don't want to be hit by it. Because of the loss of Dragon Annihilator, the old green dragon attacked again. On this night, his evil servants raided the elf's residence. The old green dragon spews poisonous breath from the sky. The elves who had been accustomed to peace were killed and injured in an instant. Among these elves, there are indeed many elites. Quickly launch a counterattack and take advantage of its own strength. After hours of war, the elves repelled the old green dragon. The casualties of the old green dragon servants are actually far above them. This is unreasonable. This old green dragon can never do such irrational things. There must be conspiracy. Several high-level executives thought about it. The biggest possibility is that he united the old black dragon and the surrounding swamp. But the old black dragon is cautious and cunning by nature, and he didn't want to do it directly. Let the old green dragon come first to test the strength of the elves after 100 years, and consume the strength of the old green dragon. As legendary dragons, the dragons are extremely powerful, and they are meat grinders on the battlefield. The nearby kingdoms are not willing to provoke them easily. If today's old green dragon hadn't been with her, the same powerful celestial being, I'm afraid the entire elven race would be slowly wiped out by the old green dragon. The insidious and cunning old green dragon, without knowing what benefits he had promised, actually recruited all the old black dragons that he didn't deal with. If the old black dragon is dispatched tomorrow, the whole fairy forest will end in destruction. The elves who have lost Dragon Destroyer, without a legend, there is no way they can have a legendary dragon. Perhaps we shouldn't be so pessimistic. The green dragon and the black dragon may not unite at all. This is just a separate attack by the old green dragon. The elf sharpshooter comforted. This old green dragon thinks it can do such a useless offense. Without the help of the black dragon, do you think that cunning old green dragon would attack us? We have been neighbors for more than 100 years, and we have been calm for so many years. Why do we attack at this time? This old green dragon can't do things that are not sure. The elf queen Anita said. A group of elves were silent. Are we going to move the family land? The wizard mage asked after a long time. The elves of the Biller clan are fearless. We have lived in this forest for more than 500 years. How can we shrink back because of the strength of the enemy? The elf druid was dissatisfied. So what? Do you want to watch the tribe all die? Just today's temptation attack Wuxia world. Online, we have killed thousands of compatriots. The wizard mage said in grief. The Biller clan is fearless. The elf druid replied. Okay, you two don't quarrel. What is the matter? Let's listen to the queen's instructions. The wizard marksman said. The two elves stopped arguing and turned to the elves queen. The elf queen was silent for a moment and finally looked at the elf mage and said, Zora, use the higher dragon summoning technique. When the wizard mage Zola heard this, he was a little silent. The same is true for the other two elves. They know exactly what this spell is. The spell that summons the dragon, is it strong or not? Must be strong, as long as you are not an idiot. You know the power of the dragon, and the spell to summon the dragon, needless to say. But this spell also has a drawback, that is its randomness, and consume magic. With Zola's 18th level mage level, using it only once is enough to consume all the magic power. Why is the consumption of magic power so huge? Because this magic will sense dragons within hundreds of kilometers, and then randomly open a space portal near a good dragon. Let this dragon appear instantly. This kind of spell consumes more mana than summoning from an alien plane. The dragon summoned by is not sure how strong it is. This is a gamble. If a legendary dragon can be summoned, even the black dragon will come tomorrow. There is no fear at all, but if the summoned dragon is only level 10, then this battle cannot be fought. After all, they will lose an 18th level wizard. This is gambling. The four elves present all know. Just because I know, I hesitate.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and give this video a like to stay updated on all the latest content. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card or directly on my channel. Share your suggestions for the next one. Just drop the name of the novel and the website it's on in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas. If you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it. Feel free to drop a comment.